Hey guys, it's me, Minu, different hair. Um, I just wanted to do a little intro because I never did this before. So last night I got on voice chat on Discord with some friends and we just talked about everything. We talked about asexuality, we talked about trauma, we talked about um school, parenting, religion, all these different things. We talked for about 2.5 hours, so that's a very long video, but um I thought it was really good. I'd had a discussion with them on voice chat before, and we have some really, really great conversations that I feel like people sometimes miss out on, either because they're not in Discord or they're just not in the voice chats. So I wanted to record it. Obviously, I don't have any cool visuals, it's just a recording. So it's not going to be like super cute to look at, but it is something that I feel like we talked about a lot of great things. If you guys are interested in any of the stuff that we talked about, any of the discussions we had, feel free to hop into the Discord yourself and post some comments. I really like the community that we have in Discord, and I hope to see it keep growing, and I hope to see more people having these discussions in between, my videos. And also, if you have any suggestions for any other videos you'd like me to make or any other topics you'd like me to talk about, I'm very interested in hearing that. I do have more videos on my manager stuff, but I'm just kind of tired and burnt out on that for right now. So I would like to make some other videos. So if you guys have any questions or there's some stuff that you're just like, I just really want to hear about this from Minu, I want to hear Minu's opinion on this, let me know down in the comments and I'll make a video about it. But other than that, yes, again, it is 2.5 hours. I know a lot of you listen to it in the background, so you could just play it and walk away, just like you would do at a podcast or anything like that. Because it's not scripted and we're all just talking, we might say some off the cuff stuff, or we might say something that might be a little problematic or anything like that. It's just because there were no rules. There were no rules. You can say what you want. You can say how you feel about stuff. I threw some stuff out there. Even there's some people might be like, "What, Minu?" So give us some grace. It was our first time recording one of our voice chats, and we're just talking. We're just talking because we're people. But that's all I wanted to say. I hope you guys enjoy listening to this video. It was a bitch to try and edit it even a little bit. So again, forgive any errors or audio that you might hear that's messed up. But I hope you guys enjoy it. Let me know what you think down in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye. I'd rather keep it real with you want to start? There
Oh
it
my
is.
gosh, this thing wants a human sacrifice.
Okay, so we're just gonna have to do this the phone way. Let me get my charger.
What is the theme of this conversation going to be? Is it just going to be a random conversation about whatever, or are we gonna have some overall topic that we're gonna discuss?
It can be a random conversation if you want to. So I was just talking with Otaku because we have a lot of conversations about like emotions and stuff, because they have a, what you call it, Otaku, with the A,
Alexithymia.
Alexithymia. So they talk a lot about struggling to identify emotions. And I actually was talking to someone the other day who was reading these research articles about people who were detransitioning, and a lot of the people that they surveyed turned out to be
sacrifice.
But as I was saying, it's like,
Good
I
evening.
think there must be something. What?
Someone's joined.
I'm an idiot, okay? Like,
okay. Do you?
I have problems.
So there's a lot to be said about that. And Otaku messages me all the time, asking me questions about, what was it that you asked me all the time? Like, what does it mean when someone says that they're processing? What does it mean when it's this? What does it mean when it's that? What type of person is this? Is this someone being emotionally manipulative, or like, oh, we have those type of conversations all the time.
Yeah, I don't know a lot of stuff, so it's pretty disappointing.
Well, a lot of people don't know this stuff. Like, one of the things that I find very frustrating when I'm on the internet is the way people misuse labels like narcissist or, trauma or triggers and stuff like that. People misuse that a lot. People
anytime you don't like somebody, people immediately want to call that person a narcissist, and that's not what that means.
Yeah, but people aren't very good with labels, generally speaking, as you will notice
Hopefully
by
I
now.
haven't fallen into that trap of using it
Right,
wrong.
right.
So
No, people suck even when it comes to like asexuality and stuff, but
Yeah.
people often will say, you know, my ex cheated on me, so he's a narcissist. Well, that's not what that means.
No, it absolutely
no,
isn't.
definitely not. I don't know what my ex was. I just know that he was trauma bond, but I don't know anything else about that creature. But you know,
And I even struggle with understanding what you mean by the word when you say trauma bond,
I
because
know.
definitely a toxic relationship, and I would say borders on the abusive side as well in some areas.
well, it's like a cycle, you know, where it's like abuse and then things get normal. I mean, kind of like what happened with that friend that I told you about, where I didn't know what kind of mood that nut was going to be in, that type of thing. But probably on a lesser scale with the ex, though. Like, I don't know to say that he was like a little bit more stable, but I know that lots of problems came up once I started getting back into Visual K. Because, I don't know, he just got butthurt about it all the time. Like, one time I sent him, like, a picture of, I think it was either Leda or Asagi. I don't know which one. But he was like, why you send me this gay stuff? And, like, he said that he almost broke his phone and, like, threw it against the wall and stuff. And it's like, that's not my fault. That's your dumb fault for, like, throwing it against the wall. And he's like, no, because you sent me that gay stuff. It's like, it's not gay.
So someone's insecure and
He's
has
butthurt.
anger issues, which can put you in a weird state because you don't know if they're going to be aggressive towards you or not. So definitely very, very toxic and dysfunctional.
Yeah,
I would say
why he was so butthurt. I mean, like, I have family members that are butthurt like that. Like, my brother is butthurt like that. My other brother is butthurt like that. Like, he's running around calling monkeypox like F disease and stuff. So, I mean, like, you don't get any more butthurt than that.
I don't think that's particularly unusual, to be honest, sadly.
It's really not. It's kind of disappointing.
Yeah.
I think there are a lot of men who are insecure about their sexuality. And they feel like in order to prove that they are a man or prove that they are manly, you know, that they have to reject everything feminine and reject everything that might be gay because being gay is seen as soft, though there's some buff ass gay dudes out there that will beat the shit out of you. But people don't want to acknowledge that. Like, and I find that a big issue in the South. I don't know if it's like that in the North still, but
I would say been a big issue. I would say it's kind of like that everywhere.
I think it is like that. Even in Europe, I think that's the case. I think people are just.
It didn't help the fact that I was like, because like, you know, being autistic, I tend to be like freakishly obsessed with things. So like that didn't help the situation either. And it also didn't help that I made jokes about him being whipped by these individuals. And me tying him up and like doing things like that, that did not help the situation. But I mean, like, whatever. Like, people can't have a sense of humor, I guess.
You're definitely very compatible in that way. I think if you had somebody who was also into the kinks and stuff like that, I think that you would have a much better, you know, like rapport with that person, because then you can make those jokes.
He got butthurt when I said that I wanted to do things to his belly button, and he couldn't handle that.
Exactly. Like, you're not compatible in that way, and he feels like
why are you so butthurt?
A lot of people are. A lot of people are. I don't use the term butthurt a lot because usually there's something else behind it that's causing them to act that way. So like usually like when you think about masculinity and something, like there are some guys who the idea of being dominated by a fat person or a woman just terrifies them. It terrifies them. They don't want to be in that position. They're afraid of it. And they react violently against it because they feel like, oh, as a man, I should be reacting in an angry way.
Which is unfortunate because I told him I wanted to handcuff him and he got butthurt about that. How unfortunate.
I don't even think of that as like, you know, I mean, this is maybe the brain. People handcuff people in the bedroom all the time.
like
What you
I'm not
saying?
even.
And
Hmm?
right, doesn't matter. I didn't really quite catch what you were saying, Mina. The connection sort of cut out. So
Oh, let me know, because this phone, I took push to talk off because last time we did this, I noticed that the button was not, as I was talking, the button would just stop letting me talk. Like, it would be like, you're not pushing this button anymore. And then
Yeah,
I
so
would
the
cut it
thing
off.
about push to talk is that like sometimes some voice chats will make you do it. Like the one that I went into yesterday made me do it, so that's why I had to turn it back off to come into this voice chat. So that's why.
Yeah, so I was just saying, Rex, what I was saying is that I personally feel like there's a lot of people who they may consider things like, oh, a handcuffing in the bedroom to maybe be a little freaky, but not like so far as like deep, kinks and fetishes. Like there are some people who are like, oh yeah, we get a little nasty in the bedroom with the handcuffs, blah, blah, blah. Now, when it comes to whipping and whatever the fuck Otaku was trying to do to this man's belly button, I will say I can understand
yes,
that I'm feeling a little weird about that.
hi.
Um,
I
but
mean, whipping. You gotta like make marks and stuff. Like.
and some people don't want to be much. That's not their thing.
Yeah,
A lot of people are very vanilla when it comes to their sexual stuff. I would say coming from a very hypersexual family,
Definitely did not
it's
want to
kind
be
of
stepped
different.
on.
Yeah, and like our sister-in-law is a dominatrix, so she deals with, those kind of guys all the time who may seem like they're not into the stuff, but then they'll pay her $800
Oh
to
wow.
do stuff. And it's just like some people have those things that they're kind of ashamed of it. They're ashamed of those feelings and they don't want people to know that they have those feelings, so they may react kind of aggressively to anybody who might, you know, say something or suggest that they like something. I
Well,
always
it
found it
can be very tricky. Like, the reason why they don't want people to know is because you can be taken advantage of with that. And I know someone who was. They were actually one of the ones who cut me loose this year. So,
Mhm. Right, because then you don't want somebody too who they do try to enter those spaces or make those connections with people, but they don't fully understand everything that they're doing, and then, like you said, somebody takes advantage of them.
and I suppose it's true
yeah,
as well, right? So you
the one that's.
can be blackmailed and stuff like that. You get stories that happening sometimes.
Yep.
Yeah, one that I knew that was actually in that type of situation. Like, totally just got taken advantage of. It's like, they, I don't know. It's
Right. You don't have to go
unfortunate.
into you don't have to go into detail about, what happened to them. But like stuff
Yeah,
like
I
that can
don't
also
want to
lead
put their
to
business
trauma.
out there, especially if I don't have contact with them anymore. Like, definitely
Right.
not trying to
I
put
think that's
anyone's
fair.
business out there,
That's fair and that's very respectful. But stuff like
Yeah.
that like does like lead to trauma and things like sex repulsion. I think you and I talked about this too, because when I was talking about it, even in my videos, people who go through things like abusive relationships or different type of sexual traumas can end up being sex repulsed, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they've changed
Yeah, of
sexualities.
course.
It
Oh.
just
Which is
means
why
that
you
they are
can't. I mean,
now
you can't say
sex
your age
repulsed.
just because you had a traumatic.
Well, I've always been like apathetic about like sexual stuff, I guess. Like it just wasn't something that interests me enough to want to pursue it. But
And
then
I
I
also
also come
wonder
from
too.
a hyper religious background, so that's a thing too. you know, those conversations are definitely not had very often. Doing so can cause lots of danger, I would say. Very
Yeah, trust
dangerous
me, it's not fun the
conversation.
other way around either. My family can't shut up about sex, and it was so annoying.
Well, I mean, it's, I
It,
don't think mine is that quite as bad, but certainly, I think they do talk way too much about, and sure, as a child, it's
yeah,
quite annoying. There's just there are lots of things I wish I
It's a
didn't know,
lot.
right? Lots of things I wish I just hadn't been told. Um,
I was told lots of things, but that wasn't until like I with my ex. You know,
Right.
so many
Yeah.
cursed things.
I'm interested to talk to more autistic aces because I feel like there's different layers, right? You know,
Right.
the way you experience sexuality and then also being neurodivergent or being somebody who struggles to identify the different emotions and feelings that you have. I'd be interested to hear more perspectives on that
So would
because
I.
I've seen some people in ACE groups who talk about being autistic, but they don't talk about it in relation to their asexuality
No,
or their
but there does seem to be
aromantic.
some sort of overlap. I mean, chances are,
There
Yes.
is
if you are
overlap.
ace,
There's
there's a
actually a
greater
lot in my
chance.
server.
Yes, exactly. There's some sort of overlap. I mean, if you are autistic, the chance of you being ace are significantly higher from what I've seen, which is interesting. I don't know why that is the
Yeah,
case.
there's a lot of autistic asexual people in my server actually, which is funny to think about because I have a neurodiversity chat channel for that reason. So, you know.
All right.
Well, something that I was thinking about when I was talking to someone else, because when I was talking about all of these different micro labels, and I was talking to somebody, they're not autistic, but they have ADHD. And I was
Oh,
talking
well,
about,
that
these
is
different
neurodivergent still. That is considered
right.
neurodivergent.
It's neurodivergent, but it's I just wanted to be specific that
Oh, yeah.
they themselves were not autistic. But
Yeah, that's fine.
they were talking about how some of the labels that I was like talking about, like some of the attraction labels, some of the sexual labels, kind of felt like something like an autistic person would
Yeah.
use to like identify an emotion or a feeling.
Right.
Oh.
That makes sense.
And that's why I would want to have more conversations about that, because if you struggle to identify these emotions and these feelings, I can understand why
I can understand why some,
you would come up with these different labels for different attractions.
right, exactly. I mean, I can understand why some label, which is, way too
Mm.
specific and way too, superfluous from everyone else's point of view, might be useful. Certainly, as long as,
Well,
but
I
I think
think
that
like
you still have that balance, because the point where you start making flags and start expecting people to know what it is, I think that's where it becomes a bit too much, right?
yeah. Yeah. And I was going to say, like, one thing that I did see about alexithymia was that it's coming from trauma, I guess. And I mean, naturally, autistic folks, they're just like traumatized by nature. All of us, every single one of us. It's like you can't even grow up in the world as an autistic person and not be traumatized by something.
I don't think you
I
can.
mean,
There's
whether
very
it's
few
like you
situations.
existing in a war zone or something,
Well, I think
or
all
if
people
it's
are
just like
traumatized.
bullying and all that, it's always something.
That makes sense. But I will say, I think everyone is traumatized in some way or other.
Yeah, they probably are to some degree or another.
Everybody experiences some type of messed up something. I will
And just
say,
people who don't actually
I guess some people
Yeah,
handle it better than others.
if you meet someone, if you've ever met someone who really just had it easy, right, who just had everything, those people often experience they really have a hard time later in life because they weren't. They didn't learn how to.
I don't even relate to those people.
No,
It's
neither
like
do I.
if they had it easy,
Neither do I. But
it's like I can't relate to
but there are
them.
people out there who really had very easy childhoods, who parents who helped them with all sorts of things, and really had it easy
Yeah,
growing
those
up. And
people, like, I can't have conversations with those people, unfortunately. It's like, I think one person I knew in my entire life had a secure attachment, and it was so weird talking with them. It was actually my ex before the trauma bond, hilariously enough. And it was funny because when I did get with that ex, I remember like he was telling me about how his folks were supportive of him and stuff. Like when he said that he finally asked me out or whatever, like they were supportive and like, like his sisters and them, they were supportive and stuff because
you
he
feel
wasn't
broken
much
next to those
he
people.
needed, I guess. Like he wasn't much redated and stuff like that. So they were happy for him. Me, on the other hand, well, let's see. First, my brother made a joke, and then I didn't respond to the joke in the way that I was supposed to respond. So then he went and told mom. Mom starts yelling at me. Dad starts interrogating me. They both start interrogating me. They both jumped on me for like 20 minutes. And like, I told him that, I think he was like, oh, okay. Just like didn't
Yeah.
even know how to respond. Like, what? Like
So
this
I
some
know a few
abstract
people.
universe level type stuff.
I know a few people who have secure attachment. I'm gonna say this one thing about it. I'm gonna move on. My manager is one of those people who grew up, like she told me this. She grew up being the most special person ever. You know, her parents gave her
Right,
everything she
yeah.
wanted. And as an
Yeah.
adult, she struggles when people don't just do what she wants, or when people don't, like when she's like, I'm sad, you made me sad, and the person doesn't immediately like try to make her happy. That's like confusing to her. It's like,
And I think that must be
Oh.
but I said you made me sad. Why won't you try to make me happy? Because I don't give a fuck.
a very. I mean, that must be
That's
very
funny.
difficult to live like that, though. Is what I'm thinking. It must be.
Yeah, she's falling apart. Like I be seeing her, I be like, she was looking real rough today. Someone didn't get enough sleep last night because in her role she has to be tough,
Right.
and people who've been coddled their whole life don't know how to be tough,
No,
so
they
she
don't. And
folds
I
very
think
easily.
me personally, in my life.
I don't even have the empathy needed to relate to that situation, but that's very
Yeah,
fascinating.
but another thing is, I mean, in my personal life, I think my early childhood years were very good, and then from the ages of like 10 upwards, they were hell on earth, right? And that's a sort of interesting.
Mhm.
What I did realize is to be happy in this world, you have to acknowledge that we are living, in hell more or less. We are living in this horrible, horrible, horrible world. And you have to accept it completely. You have to just go, right, this world is just terrible. Everything is wrong with it. Like there are so many more bad things than there are good. Like the bad just outweighs the good, like so much, and it's horrible. But you have to accept it. You have to accept it, and you have to live with it, and you have to.
Yes,
And I think that is the key to happiness, right?
Probably.
But the thing about that is, if you are raised with a secure attachment, your parents will be giving you the tools to be able to deal with the world like that.
Right.
Yeah, that's
So
the
some
thing. That's
parents
the
go
key thing.
overboard. Yeah, some parents go overboard trying to make their child as happy as possible. It's not about making your child as happy as
No.
possible. It's about helping your child understand things like boundaries, consent, helping them know what they
Things
want,
I
and
didn't
helping
learn
them be able
about.
to deal with it. Yeah, if you have a child learning how to say, no, don't touch me like that. No, I don't want to hug. No, I don't want to do this. Like you learn that you can do that. When you become an adult and you run into toxic people and they say something crazy to you, you can say, hey, I don't like how you just spoke to me like that. And you're able
I
to
was
do that.
required to perform.
And you did not have a secure attachment. That's the whole thing. But then you have the children who are raised with various insecure attachments, whether that's through the neglect or the abuse or anything like that, they don't get the skills they need to survive in the real world. The survival tactics that you learn as a child in an abusive, neglectful environment does not serve you as an adult in this world. People think it does. Parents will say, well, I'm preparing you for the real world. In the real world, no one's going to care about your feelings. That's not how that works.
I do think it's a
That's
balance,
very
though.
true.
I do think it's a balance. Sadly, I mean, I do think we have to go through a certain amount of really tough stuff to come out the other end and actually be a successful adult without it being too much, right? So it is that balance. Because if you have it too easy, I mean, it's just as much of a disaster, because the world is a tough place.
Yeah.
I think.
Right, but it's your parents' job to help you through that tough situation so that when you're an adult, you know how to navigate it. So I will give an example from my inner child group, the one I cried in. Oh my God. But we were talking about different situations where, say you're like pouring milk or something, right? And you spill the milk. And you're an adult.
That used to happen to me.
Yeah, depending on how that situation played out when you were a kid and you accidentally spilled something, that comes out of it as an adult. So if you were a kid and you're trying to pour something for the first time and you spilled it and your parents screamed and they cursed and they were like, look what you did. Like when you do that, when you're an adult and you accidentally spill something, you immediately freak out because you think you're about to get in trouble. Like your brain still remembers that
My mother
situation,
was
and then
really
your
bad at stuff
partner,
like that. She was always
Yeah, that did happen to me when I was a kid. I remember my brother made jokes about it for the longest time. That like every single time I would always spill something on Thanksgiving and then get yelled at for it. He made jokes about it for ages.
That's
terrible.
what you're supposed to do when a child makes a mistake. You're supposed to talk them through it and let them know, hey, it's okay, you spilled something. We can clean it up. Here's how we can pour it in this way to make sure it doesn't spill next time. So then when you're an adult and you accidentally spill something, then you just repeat what your parents said to you of, oh, I'll just clean it up and then I'll pour it again.
Which seems, I mean,
and like
which seems
that's
obvious, right? I mean, of course that's how it works. I mean, I'm surprised. I'm really surprised the parents don't.
It's obvious now.
No, but
I mean, I spilled something by myself and had like a mental crisis over
no, but I mean,
it.
why would parents?
Like,
I'm just surprised how parents can
you
be so
know.
incompetent and they can just. How do they manage to think so little about what they're doing? I just,
because
because
that's how breeders get down.
They didn't plan to be parents. They planned to have sex.
I know,
and then
being
they got pregnant.
age, that's difficult for me to understand as well. Like I don't get how that can just happen. I mean, because for me it still is. Even though I know what people are up to and I know which urges they have, it still feels like something people only do in the movies, right? It does. I mean, I don't think I've really fully accepted that it is something that most people actually do often and want to do, and they have a hard time living without doing it, right? I don't get it. It's just,
Yeah, and I, because my family's so hypersexual, I have an understanding of it, like as a concept, and it's still annoying. I still don't agree with the way that they do things, or like, and also too, there's a lack of sex education too.
Oh, certainly.
But I was gonna say,
we are really at a very dangerous place right now.
I'm sorry.
I think we're at a dangerous place because on the one hand, we live in a society that is very sex positive, and then on the other hand, it's still a taboo, which is a very toxic, very dangerous combination, I think, right? It's still very much a taboo. It's still something you don't talk about. There's still a lack of education, but it's still something that is seen as necessary for a good life. And that combination, more, these days, it is. I think it's not really a choice for people. It is, if you're ace at least, right? It is complete. You have this allonormativity. It is taken for granted that you want those things, right? It's a very.
Well, it's rough out here.
I can't talk about Europe, but the culture shift in America is you have the conservative people and their ideology of you have to be as restrictive on sex as possible, to the point where kids don't know anything. Like you could be an adult and you know nothing about sex,
which you don't have in Europe.
Other than that,
yeah, you don't have that in Europe, right?
Until you're married.
Probably why my behind is so kinky. But anyway.
Well, the thing is, what you get from that is you get a lot of people who, because they do have urges, try to cheat the system and end up doing all this weird shit to try and satisfy those urges without, quote unquote, actually sinning, And so you have those people who are like that. And then you also have the people who go all the way in the opposite direction and completely rebel against the conservative ideology. And they get into the kinks and the fetishes and the whatever as a fuck you to their evangelical.
They're the ones we have more of in Europe, I'd say. Because we don't, I mean, I'm from Scandinavia, right? So it's not particularly religious over here anymore. There's very much a sort of ideology of religion being bad, and it belongs in another time, right? That's very much how people see it. But not universally, and my mother's religious, but when people are religious, they are in a sort of modern interpretation, modern way, right? They don't follow the rules that, like, there's sort of, you have people like that in the US as well, right? Like white liberals who are Christians, but they just don't. I mean, they pick and choose. They take the
Right, there are gay Christians who are like, we interpret the Bible differently, or we believe.
And you have a lot of those. You have a lot of those in Scandinavia, And then you have a lot of atheists as well. So they're the two main groups. And you have people who are conservative, but you always do, right? Especially in the countryside.
I was actually talking with someone about how a lot of Christians don't acknowledge Jehovah's Witnesses, because somebody on another server said that their families were Jehovah's Witness and stuff.
Right.
So then my family, who's non-denominational, they don't acknove the Jehovah's at all.
They have all sorts of different factions that don't acknowledge each other. Same with the Mormons, right?
Them.
Most people don't acknowledge them. So they have all sorts of different groups that don't like each other.
Yeah, I don't think they acknowledge the Mormons either. I don't know.
And again, they have their own.
One of my friends
they have their own third book, so I suppose it's different. But yeah, so what I was going to say is over here, I'd say it is very much that sort of sex positive but toxic sex positive ideology that has won. It is very much, everyone's supposed to have lots and lots of sex, but it's still taboo. It is still taboo, which is a very strange combination. It is there is still a lack of education. There are still those sort of very toxic ideas about how it's supposed to be, and then at the same time, it is taken completely for granted that it is something everyone wants, and it is a necessity for good life, and that's But I suppose it is similar.
And that's where the issue.
Sorry?
Definitely.
That's the issue in America too. Because if we had proper sex education that talked about the importance of consent, the importance of boundaries, and all of that, it wouldn't feel like this repress, explode that a lot of people are going through. Where there are people, and it's totally fine for there to be people who enjoy having lots of sex. That's not the issue. But when those people say, "Oh, everyone is like me," everybody's just waiting for their opportunity to have sex with someone.
And that's a lot of us just don't even care. It's we're not missing anything.
We are missing.
There are those who we genuinely do not care. We do not have those feelings, but people will look at us and say, "Oh, you must be religious. Oh, you must be some kind of Muslim. Oh, you must be, repressed in some type of way. Who hurt you?" All of that stuff.
I had all of those.
I think everyone
who's
aged had all of those, just because people don't get it, and it is so far from their experience and from the narrative.
Have you been told that you were going to be fixed?
It's political as well.
That one is a popular one too.
But it is political. It is inherently political because you have those two ideologies. You have the conservatives versus the sort of liberals or progressive, sex positive people, and both ideologies are equally wrong, right? I mean, it is equally wrong to say that putting it away completely is just as bad as opening up for it completely.
I was at least told by my trauma bond that he could fix me, at least. So that was a thing.
Even amongst the conservatives.
No thanks. Genitalia is very repulsive, but
even amongst
it's that's nice. You can have your opinion in the corner over there.
Even amongst the conservatives, you have this idea that once you get married, you're supposed to want it. So, I mean, there's really no space for not wanting it. Ever.
That's how my family is. They're not supposed to want it until after you're married. Then you're supposed to want it, but only for breeding. It's only for breeding, and that's it.
Notion, right? That's equally. I mean, that's equally as. I think it is worse than the sex positive thing, but I think both are wrong in the sense, if you're ace at least, both are equally damaging to you, just because. When it becomes. Because when people start taking for granted that it is something every single person wants, and you are supposed to do it, and you are supposed to, want it all the time, you're supposed to talk about it openly as well, which I don't think that's. What do you end up with? You end up with
something as one would have to tolerate, probably just to have the relationship, So it's you have to compromise for the sake of companionship. That's what I look at it as.
But being arrow as well, I suppose. For me, it's just.
Yeah.
There's two types of conservative ideologies when it comes to sex as well, though, because there's the one that you guys are talking about where you're not supposed to have urges or feelings or whatever until you're married, and then you're supposed to have all those feelings. But then there are the ones that are even. Well, no, they're the ones who. It's not just a breed. It's now that you're married, you're supposed to feel it all the time. That's why those people ignore things like marital rape, because they're like, but you're supposed to do it all the time. You're supposed to want it all the time and all that stuff. That's that side of it, right? The other side of it is the people who are so restrictive, so committed to the idea of it being sinful that they have so much shame from the church, from their families, that when they do finally get into those relationships, they still are scared to do it. Like, there was an article of this couple who they got married and then they still chose to not have sex after marriage because they felt that sex itself was sinful. Like, it can go that far in the ideology, because I mean, you think about it, if you're ashamed your entire life around just having sexual urges, like you see on TikTok, that crying dude who talks about how he tries to talk men out of masturbating because he's like, it's only 5 seconds of pleasure, but then you're gonna go to hell for eternity. Like, people get really, really messed up in the head over
that makes complete sense. You would be, of course, naturally. That is how it would work.
You'd be afraid.
Of course.
Well, I've been shamed and chastised and everything else over my interests for my entire life. So it's like one of those things that you just kind of get used to after a point. I mean, I remember being as young as 7 years old having to try to suppress my interests. The problem is that I did not learn how to properly mask until I got into high school. So, you know.
Right, and that's a whole other thing.
I'm just sticking to you at this point.
Ignoring the fact that young people do feel. Hello, Sadie. Do you need something? I'm sorry. Hold on, Sadie, get up. Leave me alone. She's gonna get put on my computer in a second.
Overheating.
No, she's coming over here to put her butt in my face. Anyway, yeah. So it's just I lost my train of thought because the cat butt just threw me completely off. I'm sorry.
The loaf. She's loafing.
No, Morticia's loafing. Sadie's sitting on the floor staring at me. And she does this thing where she runs up on me and like runs like on my face and everything and then runs off. And it's so annoying.
Attention, I guess. Give me attention, basically.
Yeah, they had their fill when I napped earlier and they like napped with me. And now that I'm up, they're just like, so we up now? And I was like, can't y'all play with each other?
It's like, we're up now.
But yeah, okay, I remember what I was saying. So that's where you get the issues from the conservative side with both the hypersexuality of the people who are rebelling against that conservative ideology, as well as the people who are 100% committed to denying themselves any type of pleasure or happiness in life. And that goes back way back, to when the Christian church dominated, all of Europe, parts of Africa.
Ideology, really, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
The whole, you have to deny yourself of every possible piece of pleasure and happiness, or you won't make it to heaven type stuff. And that's so ridiculous that people would still follow that. But I'm gonna let them do them
as long as
they leave me alone.
No, but in all fairness, if you want to live like that, go for it. As long as you're not pushing that opinion on anyone else. I suppose.
Right. I am.
Yeah, that's the thing. It doesn't stay with one. It goes everywhere. So
right,
that's
and then
the
they
thing.
bring their children up like that, and that's obviously very damaging, as we talked about.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, religious trauma is definitely a thing that exists.
Absolutely.
I don't know how or why, but a video about religious trauma came up in my feed like a couple months ago, and I was like, "Wow, how did this get here?"
They know what you be looking at. There's a lot of things that cause trauma. So religious trauma is obviously a thing. Coupled in with religious trauma usually is some kind of sexual trauma, some kind of messaging to the child about hell and sexual urges and all of that stuff. Before they even feel those urges, they're getting messages that those urges are sinful and evil.
Before they even know what it is.
You have interesting stories, right? You have interesting stories because ace people who grew up in those environments, what you always hear is for like the first, throughout their teenage years, they thought they were like, people always give them compliments that they weren't succumbing to those urges, and they always sort of felt superior to everyone else. But then once they reached a certain age and realized, well, you are supposed to have those urges just within the context of marriage, it all collapsed, right?
One thing I did actually learn, I think, I don't know, somebody posted it either on Instagram, or maybe it was posted from TikTok to Instagram, or I don't know, somewhere it got sent to me. But apparently, if you say about what the AFABs should be wearing at a young age, then apparently you're sexualizing them. I did not know that, because I used to be told to cover up all the time. When my brother and my dad walked around shirtless, and I could not wear shorts. Had to be covered all the time. I still cover up. So
that's true, and that's a religious context as well. And in other religions, like in Islam, for example, you have this whole notion that women can't show their hair, right? You're supposed to cover that up as well.
And not letting it be a choice whether they want to wear.
Hello.
Oh, hello.
Hi, I'm a Muslim. I wanted to add into the conversation.
Oh, you're the booty butt, right?
Yeah, I'm buttbag McButt.
Booty butt.
Yeah.
I totally messed that up. But anyway, welcome to the fun house.
Hi.
Hi.
Yeah. Welcome to the fun house, where there's human sacrifices and death voice everywhere.
Oh my gosh. Crazy. What I wanted to add to the conversation was with Islam in particular. Oftentimes the message gets construed because people keep mixing cultural stuff with religious stuff, which becomes really damaging. So in Islam specifically, there's a passage that says women are meant to cover their hair and everything like that. And in the passage, it basically says that it's because women are like these diamonds and you want to cover their beauty. But it also says in the passage that it has to be the woman's choice, even though it's mandatory. The woman has to choose to wear the hijab. It's her choice, and she has to wear it for God. So if she's wearing the hijab for any other reason besides God, then it doesn't count. So like what's happening in Iran, the women there are wearing it because they're forced to. It doesn't count because they're being forced to wear it. They're not wearing it for God. They're wearing it because they're afraid they're going to get murdered. That's two different things. And a second thing that it says is that men are also meant to wear a metaphorical hijab. They're not meant to be looking at women in that way. So a lot of times you see in these these men who are like dictating how women are supposed to wear the hijab, like, oh, this woman's showing too much hair, this woman, look, you can see her neck, all those things. But technically speaking, in the Quran, they're not meant to be looking at a woman in that way. They're not wearing their metaphorical hijab. Therefore, they're breaking the rules. But a lot of times they don't want to look at that because they'll add their cultural things. So,
It is.
So I'm from...
Sorry, continue.
Oh, sorry. So I'm from Africa, and a lot of the cultural things when it revolves around sex and stuff like that it's the woman's, if you're AFAB or a woman, it's your obligation to give sex, regardless if you want it or not. That is your job as a woman.
It's a duty.
So they'll take, it's fucked. But that's like your job, like whether you want it or not, your job is.
But I mean, it's similar to Europe a few centuries ago, sadly.
Oh.
Yeah, it's kind of like that, and it's also like your job is to bear the child. Your job is to do that. So they'll take the cultural, so they'll take that cultural thing and they'll use Islam to try to justify that, when clearly Islam is saying the exact opposite of that. But they're just trying to use religion to do that. So,
but another thing you have with religion is always how it is always interpreted within a certain culture, within a certain ideology, within a certain way of looking at the world. It is never just the religion itself. And even most religious texts, they do and there are so many ways of interpreting them. So it is always, it is always problematic, right? There will always be problems like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Religion is often misconstrued to serve a
Exactly.
particular purpose. Like, I remember studying this in Sadie, stop. I remember studying this when I was studying medieval slavery, and how they just decided that they were going to use the curse of Ham? Rex, correct me if I'm wrong. Is the curse of Ham
the
to
three
talk
sons
about
of
Black
the three
people?
sons of Noah, right?
It's
Oh, I
saying
remember
like
that.
the mark
Yes,
that he
exactly, because there is
received,
Jesus'
and
father.
correlating that to black skin and dark skin, and saying everyone
Oh.
with dark skin is a descendant
Exactly.
of him, and that's why we should enslave them.
But he does say that.
Oh, I
I was
In
just
the
remember
like,
Bible,
hearing about
in the
that.
Bible, he does say
My mom actually used the Bible to justify slavery.
it's terrible. But what he says,
Which,
absolutely terrible. What he does say,
oh
what he
my
does say in the
God.
Bible is something like, "Oh, your descendants are cursed; they shall be the slaves; they shall," something like that, right? So it is there.
right. They should be the
Well,
slaves of
she
their
said,
Yeah,
brothers'
exactly.
descendants.
well, she said that like because the Africans like followed false gods and stuff, and that justifies African slavery. Like my mom
And
literally
that's
said
just messed
that.
up.
Oh yeah,
Which
Corona.
doesn't make any sense, because when they were
She was
forcibly
like,
converted, a lot of slaves, even in the medieval times, when Europeans would kidnap and enslave Africans who were Muslim, or the North Africans who were Muslim, the easiest thing you could do in that time, in that situation, well, easy to me, not easy to them, was convert to Christianity, and they would let you go. But
yeah.
that's not related to the transatlantic slave trade, because they forcibly converted a lot of slaves to Christianity and still enslaved them. It's not like they said, "Oh, you're Christian now, you can go free." In
Well,
America, they said, "No,
the
you're
Bible out,
Christian now,
didn't they?
and you can stay my slave and be happy." So
Well,
that
they took
doesn't work with
the
your
Bible
mother's
out
logic.
No, there was this
too.
whole argument as
Like
well
they
that
took pieces
it was
out,
sort
I
of way
think.
to help black people sort of become like it was some sort of natural position in the world, and it was actually in the
Oh
interest.
gosh, I
No,
think
but
I know where
it's
this is
absolutely terrible,
going.
right? But
The Ben Carson
no, but it's like
argument,
it was in
right?
the interest of the black people to be slaves, just because that they were made that way. And you have sort of, I read the Ordinance of Secession for, I think it was South Carolina or something like that, or Georgia maybe. I read all of them at some point
Oh gosh.
from the Civil War. And in one of them it says, no other race can endure the sun or something like that in such to the same extent as Negro, which
Oh
is the
gosh.
word that's used, right?
Well, that's the reason they enslaved Africans in the first place, because they originally tried to enslave the indigenous Americans in North and Central America, and it wasn't working. Like they were very brutal to them. First of all, they was just doing horrible things to these people. But on top of it, they were dying from all the diseases that they were, giving them, because it's a new continent. So when they were enslaving Africans, Africans had already had contact with Europeans, so they weren't dying from all of the random diseases that they had. But two, I mean, just the climate that Africans, lived in and worked in the minds of the Europeans, they were like, "Oh, you're
Exactly.
built for this." Now, can you make an argument that Africans at that time, evolved to adapt to their environment and probably were good at doing the things that you need to survive, like building civilizations and all of that stuff? Absolutely, but that doesn't mean that they should be
Not that you're
slaves. It just
built
means
for
that
it.
you're not. No one is built for slavery. That's
It's
there's
like,
not a
yeah,
proper
saying that
argument.
someone
They are
is
built
built
to
for
survive
trauma, really.
It
in
went
the
into some sort of
environment that
very
they grew up
religious. I
in.
mean, they really linked it a lot with religion, because it is that argument of like, they were clearly made for this purpose because no one else can do it. It's very circular logic, right? So therefore, we can. So it's in their interest to be slaves because it's like the purpose of the creator.
Man,
It's
please.
a lot.
Just because they were so fucking weak. They weak ass went over there and couldn't chop down a tree. So then they felt they needed to
Exactly.
enslave people. That ain't got shit to do with what
Yeah.
the Africans
Exactly.
are doing. Africans
It
was over
literally
there
doesn't.
braiding hair and, farming and doing all of the stuff that normal civilizations do. And the Europeans who traveled to Americas, the ones who did go, did not know what they were
Of course.
doing. And that's why they felt the need to enslave other people and steal land and food from other people, because they was not built for that. I feel like that's what's going to happen when all the rich people try to go to Mars. Like, they're going to go to Mars and they're going to be like, oh, now we have to cultivate the land so we can eat. And they're going to be looking crazy because they're rich and they don't know how to do manual labor.
Well, and aren't they kind of already doing that now? I mean, they're barely paying people as it is. You know, the exploitation is real. Like,
full on the ideology of, you know, when you have people like that who don't know how to care for themselves, they just have a large amount of money to where they can be like, we're going to go to this new place and we're all going to live here. But you can't take care of yourself. You don't know how to farm. You don't know how to chop down trees. You don't know how to build automobiles. So then you're going to be looking crazy. And then you're going to look for a group of people to do that for you. And then you're going to come back to the earth and you're going to be like, hey guys, I know we were talking all that shit about how you guys are all like filthy and dirty and we're leaving you to die on earth, but we need workers. So come to Mars.
And of course they traded with the
just go and ruin another planet at that point.
It was a very lucrative business for certain African tribes as well to sell other tribes into slavery, right?
That's it. If your tribe is warring with another tribe and you have this outside, you know, the Europeans coming in and you feel like they can help you in that situation, naturally, if you're at war with another tribe and the Europeans are like, we'll give you guns, you know, to shoot these people and sell them to us, then they're going to do it. The same thing happened with indigenous Americans, you know. They were not a monolith. You know, there were tribes that didn't get along with other tribes.
The French and Indian War, that was a big thing. The different tribes who took different sides, had different interests and fought each other. Because it makes sense, though. I mean, of course.
Exactly. And we see that a lot even today. With how America has inserted itself in, you know, foreign conflicts in order to serve their interests. They will come into a war and they will kill whoever's in charge so that the people they want to be in charge will be in charge. And then boom, they get oil, or boom, they get sugar cane, or whatever the hell it is they want from that country at that point.
Good old fashioned imperialism.
Imperialism. So like we see it happen a lot. And it still happens. And that's why, but a lot of people don't really understand how it happens today outside of like a lot of the political commentators, which I'm happy to have more of those people on YouTube who can translate what the fuck is going on. Cause I'd be sitting there confused. Like, wait a minute. What country is this even?
Well, I do know one person who's like very well versed in all of that, and they actually staff on my server. So that's very good to have around because they're they're super informed on a lot of that stuff. So it's like it's very good to have them around. They helped me a lot actually, so that was good. You know.
Yeah, it helps me a lot too to understand because what I learned
outside of politics too. So that's the thing. Like a lot of things. It's not always related to politics, but like it like bleeds out, you know, because like one of the issues was like I was telling you about like how I ended up falling out with my friend of 13 years and stuff like that, and a lot of that the argument started over politics, but then it ended up being over something else that is not related to politics but can still be related, especially if someone is literally taking the middle, like the I see both sides argument when you're literally being abused on a regular basis. So
So I would say about that situation, and we don't have to go into detail. Sometimes people, and going back to the mental health aspect of this, sometimes people start arguments about something, but that's not what they're actually upset about.
Well,
someone might be yelling at you because you burnt the casserole, but they're not actually upset that you burnt the casserole. They're upset that they feel like you are not giving them enough attention in the relationship. You know what I mean? So I've had those situations with people before where we've gotten into arguments over what seemed like the most ridiculous of things. And
Well,
then
I
I
think
would
that's
talk to
what
my
it
therapist and
was
they'd be like,
too.
what was really going on
Mm.
there was not what they were yelling about, but it was about this other thing that they were not comfortable enough to directly address what they were feeling and what they were dealing with, so they wanted to fight over something else.
Yeah, I think that is, I mean, if I had to be honest, like, I would definitely say that that type of thing did happen on both sides, because, like, he had stuff going on, I had stuff going on, like, it was just bound to blow up. Like, that's just what it was at that point. But, yeah.
And it's okay to recognize that too, because sometimes people
Oh,
are going through stuff.
I don't deny that I messed up in there. I do not deny that. You know,
And
I said
if
some
you
messed
share
up
a
things.
screenshot of me, I'll tell you. I'll be like, okay, so why did you do this in this situation?
I acknowledge when I screw up. I acknowledge when I mess up. I acknowledge when I do something wrong. I literally told everyone. Like, when I did all that toxic stuff, it's like, I understand if you want to cut ties with me. Like, I totally get it. It's like, I accept pain and suffering wherever it is.
Not accept pain and suffering, but more so like, listen, I know that what I said in that situation was wrong. I wasn't in a good headspace. I'm sorry about that. I understand why you're upset with me about that. You know what I mean? Like, it's totally fine to say that.
Well,
I know it's hard for some people to say it.
I understand why the ones that did cut me loose. That's why I didn't get butthurt. Like, that's why I was like, oh, well, I get it. It's like, I understand. It's like,
Right.
you know, like, most people, they would probably complain about it and not feel too good about it. But it's like, no, I get it. I deserve this. So, you know, that's what it is, basically.
I mean, I don't like the word deserved, but I'll let you I'll let you go on with that. I feel like
I deserve pain and suffering.
you do not deserve pain and suffering unless you enjoy pain and suffering, and then you can have it as much as you want. But
Well, I mean, if it's a fun kind of pain and suffering.
you do not deserve the not fun pain and suffering. It's literally a situation of
Yeah.
and I think I've said this to you before, is people think that they attract toxic people, but really what happens is toxic people will go around everybody. And the people with secure attachment, the people who have good boundaries, they're going to call them out on their bullshit like day one. And that toxic person is going to say, not my victim. Let me go to the next person. And they bounce around from person to person until they meet somebody who has weaker boundaries, who will let them get away with saying, you know, the toxic stuff that they want to say, and they stick around that person. And that's literally how it happens. I've had people, and I made a video about the white guy that I just let him get away with way too much because I didn't have good enough boundaries to say, dude, I don't want to fuck with you anymore.
Being your slave.
Yeah, I do remember that one too.
Yes, he was the one who wanted to be in my slave movie, who wants to be, yeah, like the guys like that who think that it's funny being problematic. And I should have called that out sooner, because then he would have known that I'm not the person to do that with. But I did not do that. I ignored my boundaries and I just let him go on talking the way he talked when I should have said something earlier.
And I'll just say, if it's the worst type of situation is when it just goes completely over your head. Like with me, it just kind of goes completely over my head and be like, oh, well, this is a nuisance. It's like, I don't see this much more as a nuisance. And then you got people telling you like, that's red flag behavior. That's not healthy. They shouldn't be doing that. It's like, oh, what do you mean?
And sometimes a nuisance,
you know,
a nuisance is your body saying, this is not something that I like or want to be around. But we tend to ignore our body signals. Like sometimes your body, like if you think back on stuff, you'll be like, I did feel weird when they said that. And then it'll be later on when you're like, oh, fuck, because they're racist or something like that. Like I've had.
I'm so detached that I have no connection with the body or the emotions or anything. Like and I couldn't even tell you what it was if I did feel anything at all.
I struggle with connecting with my emotions in my body as well. I gotta say, I've made a lot of progress because I knew, I won't go into what happened, but I knew this week when my inner child was mad at me. Because when my inner child is mad at me, she causes me a lot of fucking pain, like physically pain. And it was like my inner child was mad at me, and then my inner teenager was mad at me for upsetting my inner child. And I was like, damn, I'm just getting beat on both ends. I can't win. When I went to therapy, like, she came into the waiting room and I was just like on the ground in the fetal position. And she was like, what the hell? And I was like, I know, right? She was like, girl, come in here and lay on this couch. I was like, okay.
Jeez.
But literally,
a lot of ouchies there.
when my inner child gets upset, she will cause me physical pain in my body. And I would be like, I won't recognize it at first. But then I'll be like, why is this happening? Oh, I hate my life. I'm in so much pain. And then later I'll be talking to my therapist and she'll be like, well, considering the fact that you told your inner child to shut up and stop talking and you wouldn't let her express herself and you didn't defend her and respect her boundaries, it makes sense that she's upset and you're in pain. And I was like, damn, I did do her like that. I'm sorry.
Is that related to chronic illness though? The inner child stuff?
Yeah. So like my pelvic floor pain and all of that stuff, like a lot of women, I heard this from my physical therapist, a lot of women carry their stress and their trauma in their pelvic floor and their stomach. So I know somebody who carries it in her stomach. She had ulcers as young as like 7 years old.
Like she is that why Appetite leave the building and nobody seems to miss him?
That's when you're in intense stomach pain and nobody knew what was going on until she finally got a colonoscopy and they saw that she had a bunch of stomach ulcers. And it's because her stress and her trauma was stored in her stomach. My stress and my trauma is stored in my pelvic floor, which is why I have a lot of pain there.
I don't know where mine is, but anyway.
So when my inner child is upset, that's where the pain comes from. And so if you have a moment, and this comes from too, like how your parents talk to you, like what I was saying earlier, if you have a parent who's constantly yelling at you, who doesn't allow you to experience emotions, who says, stop crying before I give you something to cry about, who says, why you got an attitude, you have no reason to be upset about anything, who gaslights you that way, you do that to your inner child when you get older. You don't know you're doing it. But like, you know, people who do things like negative self-talk when they're like, I'm so stupid, blah, 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 blah. Why would I even think I could have a friend? I don't deserve friends. Like that.
I was doing that yesterday.
Exactly. But that's you telling your inner child. And you don't need to talk to your inner child like that because you'll never heal if you're beating up on, it's like you're basically beating up the little version of you. So imagine there was a tiny version of you, a little tiny human, looks exactly like you when you were a kid, and you come in a room and you start smacking them around.
Oh gosh.
It doesn't feel good. You don't want to do that to yourself, but that's what we do when we internalize those negative thoughts and feelings that our parents used against us. And so that's why in the inner child therapy, I'm supposed to be reparenting, where I'm supposed to be talking to myself in a softer voice. I'm supposed to be asking myself, what do you really want? You know, like for people whose parents controlled their food, you know, me asking my inner child, what do you want to eat? And letting them tell you, and no matter what it is they say they want to eat, letting them eat it. Like if my inner child says, I want to have cheesecake for dinner. Let's get cheesecake. If they say, because I had a lady who said she wanted to eat baby food. She didn't know why. She wanted to eat baby food. We were like, well, if your inner child wants some baby food, why not eat baby food?
Anyone,
no, because I'm an adult and it's stupid.
I eat a lot of similar stuff. Like I definitely like kale and spinach, probably more than the average person. Vegan, so that's always interesting.
Change what you eat. I mean,
yeah, I like.
But yeah, eat as much kale and spinach as you want because that's what makes you happy. Like what I really love. I really love eating nachos.
Oh,
I just really fucking love nachos. Any way I can make,
reminds
like,
me
I'll
of the
get a
other
burrito bowl with some
day.
chips and I'll be like, this is nachos. Um, I've had nachos where instead of using tortillas, they use potato chips. Like, I fucking love nachos. And I can't stand when I go somewhere to get nachos and they play me in some way, or they don't give me the toppings that I need. And I'm just like, so I came here for nothing. Like, my
That
inner
reminds
child gets
me.
literally upset because she's been like,
Mm.
I've been wanting nachos all day, and now you're telling me I can't have nachos, and now I'm mad.
That reminds me, that day when I said that my soul left my body, I just remembered that I did have Pocky ghost pepper chips, and then somehow or another that brought me back to life. I don't know
Well,
why,
yeah,
but
you were dissociating. So when you're dissociating, things that can bring you back could be like a tap on the shoulder, a loud noise, eating
I
something
felt
spicy.
my mouth was just throbbing away.
But that's how you come out of dissociation, because it just made you reconnect to your body.
It's like, oh, okay, I'm alive again. Let's burn myself. You know.
And you weren't dying. It's just that your brain, for whatever reason, decided that it wanted to escape. And so you escaped. Like, sometimes that's like a thing. It happens. And dissociation is actually much more common than people think it is. Like, people who say things like, yeah, I drove home from work and I don't even remember driving home from work. That's because you probably dissociated and your brain went on autopilot and drove you home from work, because you've done it so many times you don't have to think.
Then I suppose
one
everyone does it,
DVD
right?
of D that I actually have.
Yeah, a lot of people dissociate and they don't put a name to it. You know what I mean? Now, obviously, there's extreme forms where you, like otaku, like you feel like you left your body. Like, I've had times when I felt like I was just being pulled out of my own body, and I'm standing behind myself.
Where I'm like up in the ceiling and like watching
It's
myself.
quite interesting. I
That
know.
happened a lot when
I
I
know
was
my mother does that a great deal.
watching the one DVD.
It's quite interesting because I know my mother does it all the time without, like, it's not something she talks about. I can just tell sometimes. She sort of leaves the room, right, when I'm talking to her.
You said, does she just seem like she just is not there anymore?
She leaves, right? She's still there physically, but she just it might happen halfway through a conversation.
I'm about to say my mom's too anxiety riddled to leave anything.
I might be asking her like a question, and we're having a conversation, everything's going fine, and then suddenly she just stops and she doesn't reply for like quite some time. Just sort of stops.
Is she okay?
If I was on camera, I'd probably be like that.
I don't know if she's okay.
That's why I don't get on
very
camera.
tough childhood, and she's dealt a lot with anxiety and depression and stuff like that in the past. I don't know if she's particularly okay, but I mean, she says she's doing better now, so that's good. But
so dissociation is very common for people who experienced some type of childhood trauma. So if you had a tough life, the biggest thing that children do when they're going through like a bad situation is their imagination takes over, and they imagine that they're somewhere else.
When I wasn't doing well as a child. I wasn't. I mean, I just started thinking about other things, right, and just reading books and sort of thinking about that instead of thinking about the real world.
You can.
I don't remember half of my childhood.
Because you were dissociated. So you can dissociate.
I don't remember half of it.
So a way that I dissociated that my therapist told me about that I didn't know I was doing was napping. I didn't know that napping could be used to dissociate, but it was literally a situation where I'm sitting here and I don't want to be here. And so I would rather be unconscious. It was so funny the way she said it. And I was like, yeah, naps, right? And she was like, you would rather be unconscious than do something to relax, like watch a movie or play a game or something. And I was like, well, I mean, when you say it like that, it sounds bad. I thought I was doing self-care. And sometimes napping is self-care in the sense, like, if you're tired, go to sleep.
I'm incapable of a nap. Even if I only get 1 hour, even if I only got 1 hour of sleep, I'm still incapable.
Yeah, I used to dissociate a lot. Like, it was really, really bad. I've been working on it in therapy, but I used to do the napping thing like you did.
It's interesting because my mother, she takes so many naps, I don't even know where to begin. It's interesting. probably.
Well, if you would rather be
I mean, it
unconscious
makes
than
sense.
deal with the world. Like there's times when I've taken naps and I
But
was not
I
tired.
yeah,
I was like,
I have
I'm just gonna
insomnia,
be
right?
lazy.
Which means I can't really. It's difficult for me to enter any state of sleep usually. So it's just. But I would probably in most. I mean, I've had periods of my life where, I sort of felt I was trapped in the world, and I thought it was so terrible. I hated everything, but I couldn't escape. I didn't have any way to leave because I had to. Well, I don't know. I really hated certain parts of school. I mean, I thought it was terrible. Yeah, I always did very well academically, but I mean, I thought I hated it. I hated having to wake up every morning and go there and talk to the other students and the teachers and all that, and all the, I hated the sort of way of being forced to learn certain topics I didn't care about and all of those things. And I mean, there was times in high school I just I really, if I could have just pressed a button and just be completely unconscious throughout those years, I would certainly have done that, right? I mean, so I can understand why someone would do that.
Right. Dissociation is a it's
And
a
that's when I started learning
protective
languages, and that's a
factor.
form of
It's
dissociation as well, I suppose. Well, I had started before that, but I think that's one of the reasons I did that, just because I can. That is a way of escaping from the world, right? You sit down and you start your language, and you don't think of anything other than that, and you are essentially not in this world anymore, right? I think that,
right. And so the difference too that we want to call out, and this is what makes dissociation kind of a tricky topic, and my therapist is way better explaining this than I am, but I'm doing my best, is when you are doing something you enjoy to relax, like say you play a video game you really like and you get lost in that video game.
yeah,
That's not dissociation. Dissociation is when you are trying to escape something.
absolutely.
So there's a difference between I'm running because I enjoy running and I enjoy the feel of running, and I'm running away from someone
I get it, and I
trying to
wasn't
get me.
enjoying. I mean,
In both situations, you're running.
I mean,
And
that makes
I'm sorry,
complete
what you say?
sense, and that is, because originally when I started learning language, I really enjoyed it, but then when I reached that period of my time, I just hated life and I hated everything. I didn't enjoy learning language. I hated it. I thought it was just the only thing I could do to escape this world, right? It was the only thing that wasn't my normal life, so I did it. I mean, I tried learning Spanish in
Mm-hmm.
2 weeks at one
Huh.
point, and I could, after having never studied Spanish before, I got to a point where I could actually have a conversation after 2 weeks, which is not because I was enjoying, just because it was the only thing,
Oh.
and the way I described it at the time was, it's the only thing that gets me to not think about the world I'm living in, right?
Right. And that's another thing too, is that sometimes the things you enjoy, if you start using them to dissociate, they can become things that you hate. And I think that that is what's happened with me, with learning languages as well,
Oh,
because
wow.
me even trying to learn Japanese as a child was my way of escaping. Okay, I'm, this southern little black girl living in this dysfunctional, poor black family. But if I can learn this
Hmm.
language and I can be in this other world, maybe now I live with this Japanese family and they're like this and this and this, and I'm over there now. And anytime I wasn't watching
Oh.
something, mentally my brain
Right.
just wanted to be over there, like I wanted to be in another country. And
Oh.
it got to the point where I struggle sometimes to go back to it because I have a lot of anxiety about it. And there are
Oh.
a better example would be somebody who used drawing as a way to escape as a child. They thought they loved drawing, but then they started using drawing to escape as a child. So then as an adult, when they were doing some kind of project where they were supposed to pull out some crayons and start drawing, it
Right.
gave them an anxiety attack because it made their brain think, oh, we're trying to escape from this bad thing again. That's what's going on right now. As
I don't
opposed
even
to
know what I use at this point.
you dissociate. Well, you first of all, you do classic dissociation where your brain just leaves your body. But you have
It's like that part from The Simpsons where Homer, like his brain just floats out of his body. It's like
right.
that.
So you have the classic version of it, which is a survival tactic, and I would say is still very helpful for you, even today. But then you spend a lot of time online in the Discord, 2 watching a lot of your cosplay metal Japanese men. I don't know what you call that genre, but you spend a lot of time watching that and kind of being like very absorbed in that. But then also it's hard to say because you're also autistic, so your brain already works differently. But then you also have
pretty wild.
layer of trauma that makes your brain work differently because trauma changes your brain as well. So it's very
it definitely
complicated.
does. It's very, very complicated.
There's some things where I can say, like, I see the similarities between you and me that I can call out on, but also I don't want to say I fully understand everything because
that's why you put up with my crap for this long, right?
I don't put up with you. Trust me. If I got to the point where I felt like I was putting up with you, I would have said something.
Oh, most people put up with my crap for a certain amount of time at least.
I will say when we put a point where I feel like I'm putting up with somebody, I start popping off. Like I popped off on my coworker yesterday, and I was just like, the nerve of you to even, like, I just started going in, and he was like, he has this like kind of sad voice, and he was like, okay, Minu. And I was like, and I didn't even feel bad because I was like, don't try to make me feel bad for you. I'm sick of your shit. I was so mad. I was so mad.
Oh, yeah, and I was going to say empathy doesn't exist with me, so I just kind of, you know.
Well, I will say, yes, you do struggle a lot with empathy.
It doesn't exist.
It might. We just have trouble identifying it. You don't know. It might be in there somewhere.
I mean,
I don't know,
I would
maybe.
say I've become very...
No, I mean, surely the
What'd you say,
reason
Rex?
for you're going vegan must have had something to do with empathy, right? Some kind.
Perhaps. Perhaps. And then the fact that I'm still masking still probably is something.
And it's not healthy to be masked all the time, too. Like, that's...
No,
that's
I mean,
very
like, masking because of COVID.
Oh,
That's
right.
what I mean.
Wait, you're wearing a mask, like, at home?
No. Like, when I go out, like, I'm still wearing a mask if I go out, you know.
Oh, yeah, I still wear a mask,
because of COVID.
I'm the only person in the whole store wearing a mask, and I don't give a fuck. I bought like 100, what are them, N50 masks?
N95s?
N95 masks. I bought like 100 of them, and you better believe I'm wearing them hoes when I'm in the grocery store. I wear them
people get
everywhere.
butthurt when you say that you stand with the chronically ill and immune compromised community, because then it reminds them how much that they suck as an individual.
Also, some people are gross. Like, even when we were still supposed to be wearing masks, the main people who I saw not wearing masks were the ones who open mouth cough.
Yeah, like the one in the store the other day.
I remember when COVID happened, people at my college weren't washing their hands normally. And I was like, I'm wearing a mask for the rest of my life because you don't even wash your hands when you use the bathroom. How am I supposed to trust you?
But they want to shake your hand when they meet you.
Yeah. I wash my hand for a minute, okay? I wash my hands for a minute. I got that peppermint soap, and I just be sniffing it, you know, and stuff. Because, you know, peppermint feels good, and it permeates the nasal cavity, you know?
I wash my hands every time I come inside. Like, every time I go out and then I come back in the house, before I start touching anything in my house, I wash my hands. Because the thing about it, I done touched the door on the outside. I've touched my car door. I touched my steering wheel. I've touched stuff at the grocery store. And also, too, my allergies are really bad. Sometimes wearing a mask helps me breathe. Like, when I went on a work trip and it was like 50 people crammed in a tiny room, and I was the only one wearing a mask. And I was just like, okay. Like, nobody else feels uncomfortable that we're all like crammed into this small room and there's like 50 of us. Like, no one else thinks it's weird. But sometimes it helps me breathe.
I think it's with handshakes as well. Some people still do that. No, but like, you know,
I don't
before
handshake
COVID was the norm, right? And now I just
I didn't handshake
for
before
so long.
COVID.
It's so weird when people want to give me a handshake. I can't get used to it again.
One of the
I
work
turn
guys,
people down.
he gave me a handshake, and he was like, "Oh, it was nice meeting you, Minu," and he like shook my hand. I was like, and I went for it,
Yeah,
but I
I
was like, "Oh
always
my
go for
God,
this
like
word
what?
because I don't want to be.
You can't just
I
bow
don't
Take
to
want
out
each
to
the
be
other."
hand
rude, right?
sanitizer. I take out the hand sanitizer, and then they get butt hurt. Either that, or
Yeah,
I just turn them down. I either turn them down, or I take out the hand sanitizer, and then they get butt hurt.
you're gonna have to dap them up. Just do the closed fist, make them feel
Yeah.
even more uncomfortable, but they ain't gonna say nothing because they're like, "Oh, well, it's a black thing."
Yeah. I'm good at making people feel uncomfortable. That's like the one thing that I'm actually good at.
I
You
need to
know?
get better at it. Like I need to like if there's someone I don't like, but I'm forced to be around them. I was telling my friend the other day because she was talking to me about her mom, and she
Uh-oh.
was like, "How would you have gotten along with my mom? Like, how do you think you would get along with my mom?" I was like, "Oh, as a friend, I think we'd have a great time." She was like, "No, but if she was your mom," I said, "Oh, I would have hurt her feelings. I would have hurt her mom's feelings like 5 times in one phone call
Oh god.
because when I'm not forced to be around someone, they will I get real reckless in the mouth. Like I will call them out on anything, or somebody be like
Yeah.
my sister's friend was like, I don't respect parents who smoke in front of their kids. And I'm like, wasn't
Yeah.
you smoking a blunt while doing your daughter's hair?
Yeah.
Make
That's
it make
funny.
sense. And then they get all mad. They be like, "Oh my God, Minu, why you like that?" And I'm like, because I said what I said. And then I can just leave. I don't have to
Yeah.
sit there and look at them.
Yeah. That's funny.
I call people out on their shit all the time when I'm not forced to be around them. That's a struggle
Yeah.
that you have when you're at work because you're kind of like forced to be around people. And I
Yeah.
just want to be so bad. Like, why are you talking to me? Go over there. We're not cool. We're not friends. You don't even like me. Stop talking to me.
Exactly.
But you can't say that because you're at work.
Yeah, that's true. The one that I did cut loose often did come off to people like that, and that's why he couldn't keep a job. So,
Exactly. So I know how to close my mouth to keep my job. As you can see, I am still
It's a
employed.
miracle. You deserve
If I
you deserve an award, don't you?
Yeah. I know, right?
honestly, people should be more grateful because like they
Yeah,
just
I
don't
think so.
understand the way I could have flamed them so many times by now.
Oh, I've
But
had people that I cut so deep that they attempted.
I don't even want to touch that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why I actually have to hold back when it comes to most people, because if I really go off on them, they might attempt. So
I would like to see what you mean by really go off on them, because two things in my head are happening.
I can get vicious.
You hang out
Okay.
with very sensitive people. You hang out with very sensitive people who tend to be hanging on by a thread. I've been around those people who are hanging on by a thread, and the slightest thing can make them snap. And so, like, you get mad at them over something, and it's boom, it's like over. For them, there's those people.
Yeah.
And then there also is the possibility that they aren't those highly sensitive people, and you're straight up just like, you should kill yourself.
Yeah.
Now, I
never did say that to people, but
you've never
I know
given
that
me
I can.
that energy
I know that I
you would
can.
kill people too.
I mean, I've been told to kill myself plenty of times in my life, but I never did say that to someone else. I can cut them deep in other ways, but
Well, my thing is, I'm the person who, and I say this because I hate dealing with people who would rather try to emotionally manipulate you instead of just being honest and talking to you directly. Like, you can say something direct to me, and it might hurt my feelings, but later on, I'm gonna be like, well, they were honest. And I'm not saying you have to be, and there's a difference between being direct and being an asshole.
I think honesty,
you know what I mean?
is quite a quality that a lot of people don't understand. I mean, being honest is, I think it's a valuable thing, even if it hurts people sometimes, at least, right? As long as you're not, again, rude about it. I mean, as long as you're nice about being honest, even if the things you're saying aren't
Yeah, I mean, I've had people be honest with me, and sometimes they cut me from doing so, but
Exactly.
sometimes that's the way it has to be. If you get cut, you know,
If you
that's just
can't
the
be
way it
honest
is.
with a friend,
Exactly.
then you're
You
not
have to be honest
friends.
with them.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh yeah, you gotta be.
Yes, Morticia, what do you want?
I think you gotta be honest with them, you know.
Yeah, you have to be. If you get to the point where you feel like you can't talk to somebody, then you're not friends. And whether that means, I think we had
Yeah.
this conversation about the people who want to vent to you, but then tell you that they don't want you venting to them. That's not a friendship. That's somebody who's using you to vent to.
Which is
And
funny
so, like,
because if you don't have empathy, then you can just use them as a plaything when you get ready.
No,
I do not
not
advise
really. I
using
don't think
people
it's
as
very good idea.
plaything. Little PSA there.
I mean, hey,
But,
if they're like butthurt all the time, then you know it comes as good entertainment. Like I'm not gonna lie.
it's not to me that you got fed up. You get fed up with people who are overly
I
emotional and then decide to
I
fuck
did
with
it.
them to make yourself feel better.
Oh, I did it to my ex before I cut him loose. He was I don't know to say he was suicidal, but whatever his issue was, I did troll him before I cut him loose. And somebody called me a sociopath, and then they reported me to the staff team, and they posted the screenshots of the conversation. And then, like, the staff team told me not to say anything because they didn't want any drama in the server, so I just left.
I wonder what is the overlap between sociopathy and people who cannot identify their emotions.
I don't know.
I wonder if there's been a study
I think
on
that has.
linking that, or if
I
that's
read it,
not like
but I'm
a
sure there's something like
prerequisite.
that out there because it seems like an obvious thing to do research on. So there probably is some study.
I think if you haven't had your needs like acknowledged or properly addressed when you were growing up, then you don't do that for other people. Like you just automatically don't
It's a
because you
flip.
never
It's a
had
flip.
yours needs.
If there's two types, you can be that person, or you could be the one who, if your needs have never been met as a child, you spend all your time meeting everyone else's needs and ignoring your own needs. So
I
again,
don't
like I
have the
said
energy
before,
for that. I don't
trauma
have
affects
energy for
people in
that.
different ways. So you could have, like, I have, let's see, I have 4 siblings, and we've all had the same. Well, we've all had the same dad. We've not all had the same mom. But the point is, we have a lot of overlapping traumatic experiences, but we're vastly different people. I am nothing like my siblings. And it's because I responded to the trauma that we went through in a different way than they did. So it's not guaranteed how you are going to come out or grow up, or how your personality is going to evolve based on the type of trauma you've gone through.
I think
Like
my
I mentioned
siblings
earlier,
probably think that I'm weak, so they probably think that I'm weak. So I don't know.
and literally it's just you reacted to the trauma differently. And
those creatures, those buzzards, they're just gonna talk, you know.
I mean, they can feel however they want to feel. They ain't even over there. There's somebody somewhere else living their miserable lives.
Yeah, they're like doing whatever they're doing. I only talk to them like once a year anyway. So, like I said, those buzzards, they can think whatever they want to think.
Right. They're not happy in their lives either. And that's why they feel the need to, take little pot shots at you. But
yeah, they're butthurt about their own problems.
Right. People taking out their issues on other people is another sign that you had insecure attachment, because now you think that it's okay that if you're upset about something, you can take it out on someone else, rather than recognizing that you're upset about something and you need to fix it yourself.
Like the one who told me that my pizza was trash. How dare they? It's like, okay, well, I hope COVID claims you then.
And I mean, if I tried your pizza and I didn't like it, I would be like, oh, it's not my cup of tea. I don't like it. But that doesn't mean it's trash. Like, if you like the pizza, you like the pizza.
No, my parents call it fake stuff, so it's like only I eat my pizza.
Well, I mean, on that hand, like nobody's gonna eat you're not gonna come in looking for your leftovers and find that it's gone.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, Mom calls it fake stuff. And Dad won't touch it with a 10-foot pole either. I don't think anyone will at this point. I mean, it looks aesthetically appealing, but that's as far as it goes. Nobody will touch it because it's vegan.
well.
Yeah, I have to eat. I have to change the way I eat now too. Like if my family saw the way I was eating right now, they would be looking at me like I'm crazy because I'm really trying to get into
My father
vegetables,
thought I was crazy.
which is very
Yeah,
hard.
my-
because
vegan.
it's
Yeah,
not
my
easy.
folks, they talk so much about like my food choices. Like mom will often say like, "Oh, like you used to eat normal." Like one time she said she had a dream that I ate normal again. And it's
The fuck
like,
is normal?
I don't know, but it's a dig. It's a dig, you know. Like I think to them me being vegan is kind of like a liability, but then to me dealing with them is kind of a liability because it's like I am basically out for myself. If I go to one of their houses, no one is willing to accommodate for me, so I have to make my entire meal, like a whole meal, bring it over to them. It's like if I got to do all that, I might as well stay in my house and eat my own food by myself. And then I don't have to worry about being chastised about like table manners and crap like that, and I could drink my sparkling water and not have to think about nothing.
What's
You
interesting
know?
actually, when I originally went
I
vegan,
imagine my
my
family would do
father
the
thought
same.
I was completely mad.
You
He thought I was
what?
insane, right? But now after years and
Oh
years and
god.
years of talking about it, he's like 90% vegan himself now.
Oh wow. Well, I
I mean,
know one
it's a
thing.
healthier way to live, honestly. Like that's why I'm trying to eat better is because I'm deficient. Like I had the blood test and
Right.
I'm like deficient in all this stuff, and I don't want to be paying $150 a month to take a bunch of supplements when some of them is like I probably should just be eating better. Like if I ate more vegetables, I wouldn't be iron deficient.
Oh, do you have blue fingers?
No, I'm darker than that. But when I
You
went
get
to
blue
get my blood
fingers.
drawn, the blood did not want to flow. Like it did not want to come out to the point
Oh,
where she didn't even need a Band-Aid when she was just pull the needle out and that's it. She didn't even put a Band-Aid on me because I was not bleeding. And she was like, yeah, that's not okay. You need to
Are you
take
sure you don't have a blood condition that clots the blood or something?
Who the fuck knows? I'm not getting my blood drawn again. I know that. They're not about to stick me another 6 times. I'm sick of this.
They don't have a
most
problem getting
likely,
my blood.
money-wise,
It's
a
like that
scam as well,
vein,
right?
you know?
Like in the States, it's
like that vein is
Did
right
like, I mean,
there.
I thought it was quite
right
funny
there
what
in
you
the
said
open.
in your most recent video about how you have to be a doctor, you have to be a lawyer, you have to be like, you know, everything basically. It is. I mean, but adulthood, even in Europe,
so accurate.
you know, we have it better, right? I mean, medical care is free over here, basically, which is great, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, I know.
Don't remind me.
It's amazing, but
yeah, it's pretty painful. Yeah, that was actually one of the things that I got into it with, the one that I ended up cutting loose after 13 years because I was gaming with them a lot and I couldn't really game that much anymore because a couple years ago I basically gave myself carpal tunnel syndrome because I ran Yakuza 0 into the ground. I think I clocked like 200 hours in the span of a month or whatever. And I was doing something in the Coliseum and then next thing you know, my hand gave out. And I was going to go to the doctor about it because my physical was coming up. But then I get to the doctor, there's a note on the door says, if you ask a question about a pre-existing condition, then that counts as a second visit and they will bill you for that. So then I just said like, well, I guess I'm not going to ask a question. I guess I'm just going to take a break from gaming for like 6 months or whatever. And we actually got into it about that. Because like he was like, oh, like you're neglecting your health and you know, like soon you're gonna have to get it checked out and blah blah blah. And it's like you just don't get it, do you? It's like
doctors often aren't very competent either. So they charge you a fortune, right? And if you look at it is quite sad. I mean, it's tragic. At least over here in Europe, where, you know, we have lots of problems with the whole system, but at least it's free, right? Yeah, sure, the doctors are idiots often, they still, you know, but whatever, at least it's free. So
yeah, my friend in Canada, like she she does get free health care. The only thing she said was that they didn't
No, they don't
cover was
always. I mean,
mental
they do
health care,
partially. They do
which that
Yeah.
partially.
was
It
covered for
depends,
her.
but that's right. They don't cover that fully.
Yeah.
And you still have to pay for different.
She
I
had to
mean, you
do
still
a
have to pay
crisis,
for certain
a
medicines and
crisis
stuff like that.
thinking.
So it's not, but
Yeah.
Yeah, but you're
no,
not in
exactly.
medical debt like I am, where I'm paying all of this money for shit that
Yeah.
happened years ago. And I'm just like, I'm just gonna give you $25 a month for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Just take it from the card, man. I don't want to look at the balance and how it's not going down.
Yeah, that scary number on the paper. Oh
yeah,
god.
yeah.
That
It's
scary
a lot,
number,
and
like
I have to manage multiple bills too from different like doctors and hospitals and all of that. And that's
oh
part of the thing
god.
that stresses me out. I'm like, man, if I can make it to November in this job, like then if I quit in November or if I get fired in November, then I still get health insurance for the rest of November, and then I can just be uninsured for December and not go to any doctors, and then I just
Yeah.
get a new insurance starting in January. But like that's like all constantly on my brain, and
Like nobody even realizes it.
no one realizes it, especially people around my age, because I got
No, they
kicked off my
don't.
parents' health insurance years ago.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of people can stay on their parents' health insurance until
Right.
they're like 26, and if you have a
Mhm.
disability, you can stay on even longer. But I
Well,
got kicked
yeah.
off. I got kicked
Mm.
off at my worst point
Oh
in my
gosh.
physical health. So I
Jeez.
lost insurance at the same time that I was going to all these hospitals and getting all these tests run.
Why did they kick
And
you off earlier though? I don't even remember why.
oh, so I was on my dad's insurance, and basically what happened at his company. Now, this is also
Oh.
a company that likes to hire
Right.
undocumented workers and likes to call ICE on
Oh
them
boy.
whenever they try to form a union because they're underpaid and overworked.
Oh
So
jeez.
what happened in my dad's job was they
Hmm.
changed their health insurance to where you were not allowed to have dependents on your health insurance.
Oh gosh.
So all of the parents who had kids, suddenly their kids
Hmm.
and their spouses were uninsured.
Wow,
Can
that's
you
messed up.
It's
imagine
absolutely
how
terrible.
shitty that is? Like that's like I could not even comprehend. Like I
Oh
thought
my
my dad
god.
was lying to me at one. I thought my dad was lying to me. I was like, that cannot be legal. It cannot. And he's like, they just
Like
changed it, and now
this
we
this type of crap is
Fully
why I
agree.
am a leftist. Like,
yeah.
oh my gosh, that's painful. That's
It's
really
horrible because I was in the middle of getting a lot of these expensive fancy tests done to figure out why the fuck I was in pain, and like I was going to the emergency room, I was going to these specialists, and suddenly I'll just lose insurance like that. And so I had to pay out of pocket for my own insurance at that time, and I was like changing jobs, I was in between jobs.
Oh
Um
gosh.
it was just a whole fucking nightmare, and I hate it so much, and that's why I wanted us to have universal
Yeah.
health care so bad, and
Yeah.
we can't have shit good in this country, and it makes me so
I think
mad.
most Americans want
Yeah, we
universal.
need to just revolutionize at this point.
Right.
Like just like tear the whole thing down, you know? Start all over.
What you said, Rex, like most of
I
us
think
do
so. I
want
mean,
universal health care. There's a lot
what
of
I've seen, I think.
propaganda.
Sorry, 1 second.
What's that?
What I've seen, that does seem to be the case. I think that there have been studies, and I think it's like the majority of Americans do seem to want that.
Yeah, we do. That's the thing that like whenever Bernie Sanders would get in front of like
Right.
Conservatives and Republicans, like he could win them over so easily because he knew what they actually wanted, and he would tell
Right.
them how to get what they actually wanted. Whereas other people will do propaganda, and they'll be like, they want to poison your
I mean, the whole
children's
political
water
system
supply and
in the US is
like
just
random
a
shit.
scam, isn't it? It's one big scam. So it is a one big scam.
Everything here is a scam. This country was built on lies, and we just keep lying. And like even the Democrats, like, and that's why you have progressives versus Democrats, because even the Democrats are really, they're just
They are
Republicans
just Republicans.
with blue masks.
You basically have two parties. You have two parties that
Yeah, they
basically
don't
believe
actually
more or
care
less
for
the same. I
people.
mean, more or less, right?
Yep. You think Joe Biden wanted to give us student loan forgiveness? He was one of the main people advocating for us to not ever receive forgiveness, because he was one of the people on the commission who were saying, if you go bankrupt, you still owe student loan debt. Even if you go bankrupt, you can get rid of every other debt if you go bankrupt with student loan debt. He was on that. That was his thing. And so for him to be like, oh guys, I'm gonna get rid of your student loan, I knew that was a lie. And then for him to push it and everybody was like happy, I was like, just wait a second. And then he turned around and was like, okay, student loan forgiveness, but not for these people. And I was like, wait a minute, what happened? And we're like, oh, if you have a federal loan, but it's through a private lender, then you won't get forgiveness. And I'm like, you're the government though. You're the one that paid these private lenders to give us student loans. So you're just gonna change your mind at this point? Like, it makes no sense. But I'm really, really hoping. I did find out that mine is not through a private lender. It is directly from the government. I'm really hoping I can get some of that debt put down, because that's going to be very helpful for me. I really need that. Yeah, I have so much other debt to pay that I don't want to have to deal with paying that debt.
What an awful way to make a society. It really is horrible. I mean, it's yeah.
Yep. Unregulated. When you don't regulate stuff, it breeds it makes it how do you say this?
Exactly.
It breeds greed. So like when you think about the prohibition, right? We were like, nobody gets to have alcohol anymore. Okay, what happens? A bunch of bootleggers show up, mafia, they get involved, gangs. They're gonna open businesses where they sell liquor. Like, that's literally what happens when you don't regulate stuff. And we are not regulating these corporations and how they treat our food. We're not regulating them and how they treat our medication. Like, one of the medications I take suddenly became a controlled substance, and it's a nerve medication. Like, since when? Like, who's getting high off nerve medication? But all of a sudden they were like, it's a controlled substance, so you can only get 1 month at a time.
And it doesn't.
That makes no sense to me. And I've known people to get turned away over that same medication, go into the same pharmacy that they always go to, and get turned away because they say, we're not going to give you this anymore because it's a controlled substance.
Madness. Complete madness. I mean, it's crazy. So when I started learning Russian a few years ago, I was so surprised by, and this sounds sort of, not that I am defending Russia. I'm absolutely am not. But I'm so surprised that they at least have free medical care over there, right? Like in the States, which is crazy.
We over here talking shit about these other countries, and we can't even get our own stuff together.
It's tragic. It really is.
Right, and I hate to be that person, but I do feel like it comes back to slavery in that way too, because the idea is that bosses and CEOs, about how they feel about their workers, and how all they care about is making you work faster, make you work harder, no breaks, no sitting down. Don't go to the bathroom. We need output. We need production. Keep going, keep going, keep going. Like, that was a thing that happened during slavery, where it was like, how can we work these slaves harder to get more output? Like, how far can we push these people before they straight up collapse in the field? Okay. And we figured that out. Okay, keep pushing. Push again, push harder.
Thing is,
make more money.
At least when you had slaves, they were a commodity themselves, right? You had to pay for the slave. But as soon as you freed the slaves, well, you had no interest. There were so many people you could hire, so the individual became superfluous, right? Because you just wanted the work done. Didn't care who did. You didn't own your slaves anymore. So the French philosopher Montesquieu, he visited the States back in early 1800s, right? And he wrote a book about the American democracy. And he noticed, right, how Up north, the black people were treated way worse in some ways than down south, because as soon as they become factory workers, well, you have no interest in actually keeping them alive and making sure that they get food and stuff. Because, well, if they die, you can just hire someone else. They become replaceable.
Mhm.
Whereas if you have a slave, right, at least you've paid money to buy that slave.
Some people took out loans to get slaves. Like some people had to go to the bank to take out a
And
loan
slaves are
to
very,
get a
very
slave
expensive,
to
right?
work
So, I
on
mean,
their plantation. That's why they couldn't let them. They couldn't let them leave. They was like, "You trying to run up north? No, 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 no. I spent $100 on you." Like that's why they were
exactly.
invested in them having kids and stuff, because they were like, "Oh, that's even more for us." I mean, I hate to say it, but it is. It's like when you have,
Absolutely. I mean,
like
it
farm
is that.
animals and stuff. Like, oh, your pigs have another pig. That's another pig for you for free. But that's how it was. But like once you're a general worker, yeah, they don't care about keeping you alive. Like I forget where it was, but that factory where all those women were working, and the factory owner, a man, would lock the door. I'm sorry, what are you doing? It ain't that deep. It is not that deep. Get out of here. Jump. Sorry about that. Morticia was in my knife drawer. But as I was saying,
Yeah.
she can't help herself. But as I was saying, like they locked the doors so that the women they couldn't leave. They couldn't take breaks. They couldn't do anything, and so they kept them in there for hours and hours and hours. And then when the fire
That's
started,
crazy.
the guy didn't unlock the door. So when there was a fire,
Right.
everyone died because they locked the doors. And I think that they ended up having to make a legislation about that. Like, bro, you cannot lock people in this building. But even today, you have companies who say things like, you are not allowed to leave the premises on your lunch break, your unpaid lunch break. You must have it here in the office or in the warehouse. Like you're not allowed to go outside and like eat in your car or anything like that. Like wanting to control your every movement is like you still see stuff like that happening. You still see that ideology. So I think that breeds into a lot of things of people saying they don't want people to get student loan forgiveness because they feel like it means you're lazy because you can't pay back a loan that you didn't really even know you were taking out when you were in college, and they're like, oh, responsibility, blah, 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 blah. And it's like this disdain for people who you see as beneath you. You don't want them to have health care that's not tied to their job. You don't want them to work, if they're working an office job or a government job, you don't want them working more than one job because you want them completely dedicated to you. Some people won't even hire college students because they don't like that they have to compete with a class schedule in order to, have a worker. Like it gets that crazy. But that's how people see the people
Another
that
thing that's
they
quite
think is
crazy, most
beneath them.
modern jobs, it's not always the case, but for a lot of modern jobs, the amount of hours you work doesn't necessarily correlate to how productive you are. Right? You can often, if you work less, you'll be less,
Exactly.
you'll have more energy, so you'll be able to work better. So whether or not you work, 10 hours in one day or 7 hours in one day probably isn't going to make a big difference in regard to how much you're going to make, because
Oh yeah, I don't give a fuck after 12 p.m. I'm telling you that right now. My boss might think I do,
right,
but I don't give a fuck after
obviously.
12 p.m. Because I've been working since 7 a.m. By the time I hit 11, I'm hungry. I want to take a nap. I've given you all of my mental energy for the past 4 hours. I come back at 12. I'm just looking at you like,
You can only work so much.
crazy.
Get so much
I'm
done.
turning my
You
TV
can only
on.
get
Like
so much done in
I'm
one
not
day.
that
And
productive.
if you keep working yourself, I mean, if you keep working more than you're actually capable of working every single day, you're gonna, I mean, in the end, you're gonna reach some sort of burnout, right? I mean, evidently so. So it's just it's an insane way of making this whole system. It really isn't particularly logical. It's terrible, in every single way for most people.
Right. to shit on people who talk about work-life balance is like, it make me look at you a certain type of way. Like, I remember one time I spoke to this director at a company that I was trying to move up in, and he was trying to tell me, he was like doing this whole thing like, tell me about what you really want to do. Anybody can get a job that makes money. What do you really want? And I'm just sitting here like, the amount of privilege to sit there and say that. Someone like you who's making six figures to try and make me feel bad for wanting a job that pays more money. Like, maybe I want financial stability. Maybe that's what I really want out of life. Maybe I don't give a fuck the type of job it is, as long as it doesn't suck out my soul. Maybe I don't want my job to be my hobby or my passion. Maybe I want to have a boring job that I spend 7 hours at, and I come home and I do what I really want to do.
Exactly.
Because I have the money to live my life.
I mean, even if you have a
Like
job that's very interesting, you'll get bored of it eventually. They always do. They always start hating it after a few years.
Yeah, especially when if it's the same thing over and over. I said the best job I ever had, and I still talk to this manager, the best job I ever had,
Right.
it was completely predictable and boring. I tell you, every morning, even before we started working from home, like, I would have so many moments of downtime when I was in the office. My boss would be like, well, we got a lake out there. Why don't you take a walk? You know what I mean? Like, I could come in. What time would I come in? I started coming into work earlier just because, but I could do like these basic things. I run my little reports, send out my reports, do my spreadsheets, and be like, oh, that's really all I need to do today. And when we started working from home, my boss was like, I don't care what you're doing as long as that report gets sent out by 9 a.m. I was like, I bet.
Say, you need to
And
get,
after
once
9
you've
a.m.,
done
was
what you're
not
supposed to
successful.
do, once you've met your goals, well, you're free to do whatever. That makes sense. That's basic. It should be basic decency.
I took a nap for 2 hours one time at that job, and nobody noticed because my boss was like, "Do you, boo?" Like, he was not breathing down my throat trying to make me more productive. He treated me like he treated his salary workers. Whereas my current job, my manager's like, I don't like a person who just wants to do their job and go home. Well, excuse me, bitch. I know you working to 4 a.m., but you're not about to call me after my work hours to ask me some dumbass question by the email. I'm gonna talk to you tomorrow. It won't be urgent tomorrow. Okay.
Religion almost
Good
around
for the
work.
both of us.
How work is almost holy, and you're supposed to just embrace your job and love it. And there's a certain sort of, if you look at life from the perspective, you were born without your consent. You were popped into this world by parents who, random parents, like you were assigned some parents. You were, and who probably didn't have. I mean, most parents don't know what they're doing, right? Most parents really aren't particularly good. There are degrees of being a bad parent, certainly, but most parents aren't good parents. You're given these parents who are, mediocre at best, and at worst they're gonna mess up your entire, the rest of your life. And then you go to school,
Exactly.
and the school system's gonna indoctrinate you and teach you, and it's gonna be horribly inefficient as well, and a lot of what you're gonna learn is gonna be.
Oh yeah, they're not allowing you to go to the bathroom stuff. Like, my aunt had to tell me and my cousin at one point, if you really are about to pee on yourself and they don't
Right.
want to let you go, just get up and go. Just get up and go.
No,
And they
but
can be
all
the
those
mad at
things,
bathroom
right?
pass of the bathroom pass of
Yeah,
yesteryear.
if you don't come back in 2 minutes, I'm gonna write you up and send you to the
What
office
sort of
because I don't
logic
believe
is
you're
that?
actually
What
using
sort
the
of ways that of
bathroom.
treating
Like,
children?
stuff
And
like that.
Yeah,
it
school
is,
might as well be prison at that
oh, it is
point.
prison.
It's like you can't even go to the bathroom, and that's actually another thing that I was talking about earlier with
Okay, cool.
period stuff. Because in middle
Okay,
school
cool.
I used to bleed heavy, and I did have a man teacher, and I got called out so many times about like, oh, like why you use the bathroom like every period, and like I was in special ed, so when you're in special ed, you like stay in one class all day. So like the teachers know and they notice things, and they'd be like, why do you keep going to the bathroom like every period? Is there something wrong with you? And it's like, yeah, my uterus is falling out. And it's like, come help me. you know? But then you can't
Mhm.
say that because then they're going to be like, they're going to report you to your parents, and then that's going to be a problem, and so on and so forth. It's like, oh crap! It's like, I have to clench down there. I have to make sure that nothing comes out until I can get to the bathroom. But that's not the way it works, because once you start leaking, it's like a waterfall, like Niagara Falls down there, you
Right.
know?
So you
So
have
like,
your own,
it's pretty terrible.
We
You
can
know?
have another.
we can
We
talk
can
about
have
that some
another
other
voice
time.
chat about periods, because I do
Uh,
think that's going to be a
yeah, I
moment.
was saying, so we
Yeah,
have a
but
school
Rex, you were
system
saying.
that just treats you as a
Sorry.
prisoner, basically. You're forced to do, I mean, you're forced to do all sorts, and the things you're forced to
Yeah.
do, it's not a particularly efficient way of learning either, as anyone who's ever tried to teach themselves something they were passionate about will know. The way you learn things at school is just horribly inefficient. You have a grading system which is, I mean, it is ridiculous. And I always got very good grades. But I know it's a ridiculous system, right? I mean, especially because I did well, I can see that it's ridiculous, right? Because I know that you just have to play the game a
Oh,
certain
well.
way, and you will be rewarded. It has nothing to do with how much
You
you
just
actually
have to
learn.
remember. That's it. It's like, it's
There's
not
There's
even
nothing to do
about
with how much
learning,
you
it's
actually
about
learn. It's just about
memorizing.
playing the game, and it is
Yep.
one big game. The school system is a game you're playing, and yes, you will learn some things, absolutely, but it's not a very efficient way of
Yeah.
learning. A lot of the things you will learn are, well, yes,
It's
and
all
some of
about
it's bullshit, right?
memorizing. Even I know
A
that,
lot of it is
even coming
bullshit.
from
It's not very
special ed.
nuanced. It's not, etc., etc. Anyway, so you go to that school system, and then you get
They don't teach you critical thinking skills. They think that they are, like they push for it and they're like, you got to teach these kids critical thinking skills. But real critical thinking skills would not happen at a school that
on the
treats you like a
contrary,
prisoner or a
on the
criminal,
contrary, right?
because then you would have
Exactly,
the
and that's
question of,
why
why are you treating me like
I always
this?
really hated
Why
school.
don't
And
you
the older I
trust me
got,
to
the
use the
worse. I
bathroom?
mean, the worse it became. I just despised it, and even it is. I mean,
I
I'm
still despise
the
it
worst
years
memories I have. I
later,
mean,
and I'm away from
the
it.
worst memories I have in my life is certainly from school. And the ridiculous thing is,
Do you ever have dreams
okay,
about when you're
sometimes,
in
yeah,
school again? You ever
it
have
sucks.
those kind of dreams?
But they are like torture.
Yeah,
And the
those
worst thing is,
dreams
like,
are like
the thing that I
torture.
just don't get is, to all extents and purposes, I was a very good student. I did all the things you're supposed to do, and like it's so ridiculous. I mean, if and everyone hates it. Everyone, and like I feel so bad for the people who struggled, right? I feel so bad for the people who
Yeah.
didn't get straight, A pluses every exam. Right? I really feel bad for those people because that must have been.
I struggled, but I struggled mostly socially. Like, I didn't have like academic issues. I had good grades to my knowledge. Mom said I was on low honor roll when I was in high school or something, and that
The
was
fuck is
basically the
low honor
transition.
roll?
I
That's
don't know
some
what
new
the heck.
low honor roll. You either
I
on
don't
honor
know.
roll or you're not.
I don't know. She just tells people that I was on the honor roll. Mom tells people that I'm a genius.
I mean, you
She
speak
might as well tell
Japanese,
them that I
right?
have a
Very
cure for
impressive.
cancer. That's why
Speak
she keeps
Japanese,
telling
very
them that that song is about me or whatever. That song that basically
Anyway,
makes
but
me
yeah,
want
right.
to
So
slip my
then
wrist.
you're done with
But
school,
anyway,
and you have to go to college, right?
um,
And in most countries, that's something you have to pay for, and like that's just one whole ridiculous. And if you don't do that,
yeah,
well, getting a job is going
pay
to
for
be
it.
pretty tricky. I mean, there are other ways, but for the most part, and they do. I mean, I suppose it is over exaggerated how important it is, but but they will look for that. And you go to college, and well, I mean, it's probably better than school, but uh, still a pretty inefficient system.
It's still a social. It's still a social. I don't know, social gymnastics. That's like all it is. It's like 90% of college is social gymnastics. Because you still have to know how to socialize, you still have to know how to get along with people. If you don't, then you'll get either taken advantage of, or they'll just bully you just like they did in school, or they'll beat you up after class or something. I don't know.
I will say otaku, because we've had these conversations too about the reality.
Yeah, my
College is
reality is
different.
very
Yeah, college is different from high school in the sense that it's much larger, and it's, unless you are one of those people who lives in a small town and then you go to like the college of the town, like there's one college, you
Right.
see
yeah.
people who are from like different areas. high school is bad because a lot of times these are the same people from middle school, and you
Yeah.
already didn't like them, so it carries over. But college can be different. If it's a
Well,
liberal
my
arts college, it's
experience with
different.
school was kind of weird because I did change schools a lot. Like by the time I
Right.
got to high school, I was passed around my entire county, so I had no affinity to anyone.
Right, and it is hard socially when you have to travel, and that's also for some people that's also a trauma. You know, your life gets uprooted a bunch of times, and
Funny because I didn't
really
move. I
hard.
just changed schools. It's like I didn't move.
Yeah,
Like I
but
didn't
it's a
change
huge
house.
change. Though. School is a huge part of your daily life, and
Yeah.
so if you can find consistency or stability in that, for some people that is traumatic. For some people, moving to another state as a child is traumatic. You know, it just really
Well, moving
depends
to another
on.
state as an adult is traumatic. Are you kidding me? I was in a state of dissociation for 3 months. I don't
I'm
even
trying to move to
remember.
another state. I don't think it's going to be traumatic for me. I think it's going to be
Well, that's
a little
because you
free,
want to move. It's
right?
like
Because I
there's a
want to move.
difference between
There's a
moving when
huge
you
difference.
want to move
Absolutely.
and being forced to move against your will.
Exactly, and that's why I say changing schools can be traumatic too, because you could make friends and build up a social life at one school and then have that ripped away and be
I
thrown
mean, I
into another
changed school
school and then
multiple
have it ripped
times as
away
a
and be
child.
thrown into another school.
I don't think I ever had many social connections. Like, I was lucky to even have one friend. I remember, like, I had one friend in one school, and that was like a long time ago, like in one of the schools, and then I ended up changing schools. Then I had like another friend, but then he ended up changing schools. Then I had my childhood friend who I still have contact with, and I was in that school, and then the other district was like another satellite, I guess, for special ed kids or whatever. And then we
Mhm.
both did go to that school, but then she moved, so then that was kind of like, I don't even know what the heck. It's like I don't know what to say about that time, but all I know is that she didn't know that she was gonna move. And I remember we were talking that day at the end of the day, and then like after that there was just nothing. Like I called her that evening, nothing. Then I came to school the next day, she wasn't there. Then like one day turned to 2 days, turned to 3 days, turned to a week. 1 week turned to 2 weeks, turned to 3 weeks, turned to a month. And it was like 3 months. It's like I thought the chick had died, you know? It's like I thought she had died. And then people were asking me about like, oh, like, do you know what happened to so and so? Like you're her friend, like you know, like what happened? And it's like, I don't know. You know, and I got all these people questioning me and stuff, and it's like
So I'm gonna let this be our last topic because I really have to go, and we've been talking for a good long time. But yeah, I will say our school system's fucked up, healthcare is fucked up, our education is fucked up. School can be very, very traumatic for a lot of kids because of the social aspect, and also a lot of people do not learn in the way that they want you to learn, and teachers are there. Yes, I recognize teachers are underpaid, but some teachers are also very unkind to their students.
I got stories, especially coming from
It can be
special ed.
very traumatic. Yep, it can be very traumatic. It can be a nightmare for a lot of kids. There is potential for abuse at the hands of other students, which is really, really hard.
Time when they pointed and laughed at me.
It's not a fun time for a lot of people. Not a lot of fun memories. I will say, with regards to college, I really do want to go to like a language school or something like that. But
That
just
would
the
be
cost
nice.
of it, it just costs too much money.
Yeah, it does.
And the only reason I want to go to a language school, Rex, because you might disagree, you might be like, well, I learn languages by myself, is because I need people to talk to in that language. Like I need
you
to
need
like
people to
be
practice
having
on.
conversations.
For the most part, I mean,
Because what I'm doing right now is not helping you.
I mean, I can
Yeah,
help
you
find
end
people
up
to
like
talk to.
me.
I mean, there are tricks, there are ways of doing that. It's not particularly difficult if you know how to. You know, there are tricks you can find, and especially if you don't mind talking to people online. That's good. I mean, I
don't mind talking to people
can help you
online.
with that.
I appreciate how helpful you've been with like the language resources and everything, because I emailed the link. I emailed them, and I was like, hey, if I cancel now, will I still be able to keep, using it? And because I paid for a year. And so I asked that question, and Zoran just like came back and was just like, I canceled your account. I was like, oh damn, okay. You didn't have to be like that, sir.
Oh, they're
Asking a
idiots.
question, but go ahead. But I appreciate you
Oh wow.
giving me access to those resources and like sharing your tips and tricks, because it's like very helpful. I do need to start speaking Japanese more. I need to start speaking Spanish again.
Of course.
I've been running from it because of anxiety. So
Oh,
I need to be having like those conversations with people. So I appreciate you, Rex. I appreciate you, Otaku, for, sharing your stories and hopping on the voice chats so that I could, one, talk with you guys, because I like talking to you guys, but then two, I'm probably gonna edit this up a little bit and then
there's something I was going to say, and I don't even remember what it was, but it was in relation to one of those things. But yeah, I can't remember what it was though.
So I'm gonna be getting my hair done tomorrow, and I usually end up hanging out with the lady who does my hair because she's really nice and we like talking about stuff. So I'm probably gonna edit this tomorrow, and so it won't come up at like 11 my time like it usually does. It'll probably come up later.
Oh, okay.
Of course.
But like, I appreciate you guys.
Sunday is wash day, so
I had a
yeah,
conclusion.
so I can have something to
If we
play
have
with.
time, just I'll make it quick for my rant about the school system and all of that. I would like to just finish up by saying, so the scientific parents that are probably ridiculous, you go through this ridiculous school system, then you're supposed to find a job, they'll treat you like shit, and we have this whole thing. Why would anyone, I mean, the thing is, why would anyone, and I know it's because they have certain instincts, most of the time it isn't a voluntary thing, but why would anyone want to bring a child into such a world? I don't get it. I mean, I think it's I mean, I don't.
I agree. These breeders, I'm telling you.
Yes, it's not a nice world to bring a child into unless you are very much prepared to give them the secure attachment they need to be able to navigate this world. If you're not ready for that, you should not be bringing a child into this world because you're just adding to the misery.
99% of parents
basically
have no clue what they are doing. I mean, sadly, they really don't. It's tragic. It really is tragic. But yeah. So,
no, they don't.
Let that be the conclusion too.
Yeah. I mean, crap. Look at mine.
I wish that there are some people that I follow online that do talk about, helping your child build secure attachments and good relationships. And I hope that more parents, I wish that more parents become interested in being good parents and learning from those resources that are online so that they can raise their children in a good way, so that their children are able to navigate this crazy world. Because I hate the amount of suffering and the trauma that children go through. And so I just hope that there can be some kind of shift, at least in that area, with us all being online and having access to these resources.
Yeah.
Now I remember what I was going to say. When I'm dissociated, I can't focus on anything because my soul is trying to leave my body. I was going to say in relation to the thing, because like I have this one DVD of D that it was uploaded on YouTube, and so like the video was up on YouTube, but I got the DVD anyway because why not at that point? But all the times that I watched it into the ground while it was on YouTube, I don't even remember absorbing any of it because I was dissociated. And that was like before I cut my ex loose, so I didn't get to notice all the fun things that I get to notice now. Like when the drums wiggle when Hiroki hits them. Did you ever notice the drums wiggle? It's like
it's not about to go there. Okay, so dissociation. When you're dissociated, you're basically blacked out. Like you can't absorb information. You can't, move or talk or do anything like that.
Notice the things that I want to notice.
You can't pay attention to what you're watching because you're dissociated. People do that when they're scrolling social media. Like they're actually dissociated. They're not looking at anything.
So it's not like that I'm using a thing to dissociate. It's like I can't focus on something if I'm dissociated.
Exactly.
the point I was trying to make. Because I notice everything. Like, I'm like one of those ones who like watch stuff and analyze it and then notice all the things that I shouldn't.
Right. And when you're dissociated,
Yeah.
you can't enjoy the things that you enjoy.
Like that one part in the Dearest You live where you can see that vein on Asagi's neck.
not touching that. Okay, Mrs. McButt, do you have any closing remarks?
McBooty butt.
I did have something I wanted to say earlier, but it's fine.
You sure?
Yeah, I'm
The
sure.
last chance.
Your
You didn't
opportunity.
forget what it was, right?
I was gonna say that when you were talking about, it was like all the way beginning because I've been here for a while, but we were talking about sex and all those things. I wanted to mention how, for me personally, I've been being more compassionate to my parents about how the type of parents they are and how they raised me because of sex and how it's been ingrained into our society, just because they raised me the best they didn't raise me well, but they raised me the best way they knew how, because they only raised me the way their parents raised them, and their parents didn't raise them right either, and so on and so forth. Especially with the fact of like being someone who's a woman, AFAB, or just women in general, the way they're treated in society and how they're told that like their purpose is the fact that they are women, therefore they give sex and they have to give children. That a lot of women fall into that trap that they give kids not because they want to or because they want to have kids and want to raise them and be a good mother. It's because it's what's expected of them and they don't know what to do. So I hold a lot of compassion to my mom in particular, just because like she was basically groomed.
God,
like she had her
terrible.
first child when she was 13.
Oh gosh.
She wasn't old enough to. Yeah, like she didn't know
that's like
where
my
she was
dad's
going.
mom.
Yeah, like it's not her fault that she didn't raise me in the way that I should have been raised, because she wasn't entirely an adult when she had her first child. So she was doing the best that she could. So it's like, and when you're literally when you're growing up AFAB and you're being told that like that's all you're good for, like all you're good for is sex. Sex is something you give, and that's all you're like, you know, that's like just your purpose, to give sex and give children. That's what you believe. You're like indoctrinated into that idea of like that's how you have to give. And especially in heteronormative relationships, oftentimes it can be difficult for people that are asexual to understand, but for women in particular, your ability to have sex to your man is tied to your worth. So like a lot of times if a woman is not interested in giving sex, then it's okay for the man to cheat because she wasn't getting any. Or if a woman can't like have kids, then it's okay for the man to cheat because like her worth as a woman has been diminished. Or like if she has like a health problem where sex is painful for her, a lot of women will be like, oh, how are you going to keep your mans? Like, how are you going to have this man be a part of you? How are you going to please this man if you can't give him wants? So I like...
reminds me of my parents, reminds me of my ex, reminds me of so many things.
Yeah, so it's like, you have to like, it's easy to be like, oh my god, why is this way? But like, it's so ingrained in our society, not even in American society, like in so many different societies, that like sex is the only way that you can please a man or give into a relationship if you are a woman. And a lot of women have to just settle and just like take it. Like just, this is what I have to do.
It would be
in
very
order to survive.
interesting to do.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a poor headspace to be in. It's like I said earlier about having to basically compromise for the sake of companionship.
Not even companionship, like for survival. Like, I have to survive. I have to do this because if I don't, then I don't live.
Like if you're already like
It would be very
involved,
interesting, I
so
think,
to
to do
speak, like
a
married and all
discussion
that
on
jazz.
how
But,
gender intersects with asexuality. I think that could be a very, very interesting debate for future video.
I think that would be a great conversation to have. I will say, and this will be my last point I will say about that is, I think it is okay to have compassion for your parents and understanding that they, they went through things and they did not have great modeling from their parents about how to be parents, and to have that
neither mine
understanding
did.
and insight to say, okay, you didn't know what you were doing. You were dealt a bad hand, and this is the world that you grew up in. You were indoctrinated, you were groomed, all of that. I think it is perfectly acceptable to have compassion for them and understand that, while also having compassion for yourself and acknowledging that I know you did the best you can, but I'm still hurt and I still have healing to do as a result of those mistakes. Now, that's not to say that you intended to hurt me. You did not intend to cause me trauma. I know that you love me, but I have to acknowledge that there are things that happen to me under you as a parent that were not okay, and there's healing that I have to do, and you deserve to give voice to that experience as well, because if you don't and you don't heal from that, and I don't know if you ever plan to have children of your own, or if you're just around, young kids who look up to you, you're not going to be able to give them what they need because you never took the time to say, look, this is what I needed as a child and I didn't get it. So you can do both. You can hold space for your parents and have compassion for your parents and what they've gone through, but you also need to have compassion for yourself and acknowledging what you did not receive that you deserved to receive as a child.
Yeah.
Wow, I probably need compassion all the way around the board.
I completely agree. That's just something for me. I don't think I'll probably have kids. I might adopt, mostly just because of sexual trauma from the past, but it's just been something I've been learning, because I used to be really angry and not under why, but then when I started to learn, I was like, oh my god, like, how could you? Like, it's sometimes, I saw a post on Twitter that was saying, like, people will tell me that, like, oh, I need to love myself, but I don't know how, because I've never seen that before. I don't know how to do that. So it made me like think like, okay, they didn't know how to do it because they were never shown that. So it's my job now, for not my future children, but for like maybe my sister, if she has children, to be that example that they need, because they don't know what they're doing and they never had anyone to show them what they were doing,
Exactly. It's your job to heal yourself, to reparent yourself, to give yourself the things that you deserve, the love that you deserve. It's hard when you don't have that model growing up, and it's good that you have the desire to do that for like your nieces and nephews. But it's really it's a really, really hard journey to go through, but you can have that understanding, but also have that compassion for yourself too. It's okay to be upset. It's okay to be disappointed. It's okay to be angry because you did not receive what you were supposed to receive as a child. And those feelings are still very valid. Adult you understands the why, but the inner child that you have has a lot of raw emotions, and they need to get that validation and understanding and compassion as well. So I'm going to let that be our final thing. Morticia, get out my kitchen. Get out my kitchen, Morticia. I'm not playing with you. Why are you looking at me like that? Anyway, so I'm going to let that be our final thing. Otaku, please help me in stopping the recording.